Good evening. I'd like to call the Board of Trustees meeting to order on Tuesday, June 27th at 6 p.m. In order for everyone to hear all of our enlightened discussions, could you please silence your cell phones or put them on vibrate? Would you please rise and recite the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Nino,
Here.
Baker,
Here.
Bell,
Here.
Bertle,
Here.
Duffy,
Here.
Enquist,
Here.
and Peduncle.
Here.
Approval of the agenda.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Approval of the minutes as published.
I think we have several in there.
Yes, let's start with Tuesday, May 16th.
I'll move that we approve the May 16th minutes.
Second?
Any discussion?
Question,
Yes.
page 8, line 38. It was the consensus that the village's engineer shall be asked to provide an opinion as to the verbiage they would like to see included in future development agreements. Are we moving forward on that?
In process.
Okay.
Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Let's see, what's the next set? The next set of minutes would be for Tuesday, June 6th.
I'll abstain since I was not there.
Okay. Have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Questions? Issues? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next would be the special meeting, Board of Trustees from Thursday, June 15th.
I'll abstain because I was not there.
I'll abstain also.
Somebody like to make
Make
a
a
motion?
motion that we approve the minutes as published.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any changes, additions, deletions, comments? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I think that's all the minutes. Okay. Comments and correspondence. Is there anybody in the audience who would care to make a comment about a non-agenda item? No. Correspondence.
I have a couple items, sir. First item in your packet on page 18 from Ms. Marilyn Hansotia. She addressed this to myself and President Lino. So she writes, I would like to urge you to create a safe staircase from the new parking lot on the eastern edge of the former Braun property. As you can see from the attached photos, the present concrete steps have no handrails. She claims her husband had a dangerous fall on those steps, landing on his back with injuries, and since he's on medication that thins his blood, his bruises are extreme. She goes on to relay some items of some miscommunication that occurred, and having some knowledge of this between myself and the staff and what was ultimately relayed to her. I got that straightened out when I had a phone call with her, and I actually asked her to write this email back to the village board for consideration. She chose to include some photographs of those steps. And just to talk a second about that, those steps are engineered as such to not be required under the Americans with Disabilities Act to have handrails located on them. That's why you see two steps in a landing. There's a rise-run factor that goes into the engineering of those. As a corollary, I have asked our engineers to get a quote for us on handrails at that site, given that on page 21 I received yet another email about handrails on that property. So this one was addressed to Janelle, Chesky is the last name, and again, looking at handrails and having those installed in the hunt shop. I've also fielded a couple of phone calls about this item as well. So there's, if nothing else, the perception that handrails should be there, even if legally they're not required to be there. Page 24, there is an email from President Lino. It was forwarded from Donald Fricks.
be happy to explain that.
Yes, sir.
I don't know if you're familiar with the Back 40, nicknamed Back 40 Mine Project, taking place over in Menominee, Michigan. It's on the Michigan side of the border. I know you sent a letter. This is kind of in response to that, and I'll fill in the details. In my role as county board chair, I've received a number of letters from Don Fricks. He's also attended a number of committee meetings and county board meetings explaining his opposition to it. I put his correspondence in here. I didn't have time to get other correspondence, which I will be sending out to you all, as well as some links that you can go to click on to get two sides of the story, if you will. The state has looked at it, our various representatives have looked at it. I have a letter that I'll be sending you that was from Representative Nygrid, who is the representative for that area. The Marinette County Board voted a resolution against it. The city of Marinette tabled it and has taken no action on it, okay? So we have, at the county level, we have the Conservation Department and the Land Conservation Committee taking a look at it. We also have our Legislative Committee taking a look at it, getting additional information and input on it. I should note, I'll go into as much detail as you want. I have a lot of information on this. This project started in 2007. This is not a new project. It's been ongoing for 10 years. It takes 10 years to get the mining permits in the state of Michigan. They've spent about $60 to $70 million so far putting monitoring wells in place. They have to get baseline data for a certain number of years. From that, they build some permit requirements. They're required to get 4 permits before they can begin this mine. The mine is mainly for gold and zinc, some silver, some other miscellaneous precious metals they expect to get out of it. It's intended to be in operation for between 7 and 12 years. It'll be filled back in with limestone, capped, and it'll be over with. It does lie close to the Menominee River, which is where the objections come up. People are concerned about what may happen with the river since it flows into the Bay of Green Bay, i.e. Door County, Brown County, Kewaunee County, etc., as well as Upper Michigan. They have received 3 of the 4 mining permits required from the state of Michigan. The state of Michigan has given the state of Wisconsin that has stricter water quality requirements for mine operations. Supposedly, and I don't have the paperwork in front of me, so I can't quote it, supposedly Michigan Department of Natural Resources and Mining has agreed or indicated to the state of Wisconsin that they will maintain the standards required by the state of Wisconsin for mining and water discharges into the Menominee River, because it's stricter at Wisconsin level than it is Michigan. They're down to 1 final permit being issued. Again, as I said, this is a culmination of a 10-year process that they're up to, and they have 1 permit left to go, which is actually a wetland delineation and permit that they're waiting to get. Supposedly, this came up last September. Something was supposedly emailed to me or somebody at the county from Marinette County. I searched my records. I don't have anything that I saw from it. Doesn't mean it didn't go somewhere at the county level. The county gets many requests to do resolutions, and we put them not in a box, but they're in a bin, and the legislative committee takes a look at them and evaluates whether we should go further or take action or table it and set it aside. That may have happened at that period of time. I don't know. But because now they're down to the last permit, there's an urgency on some of the opponents to bring it up and ask us to do a resolution against the state of Michigan issuing the final permit. So I guess what I'm saying in all of this, I'll send you more information. There's 2 sides to every story as you look at it. There's several links that I'll send in the information I have. You can just click on and go to the links. The county is expecting in the next 30 to 60 days come back with a recommendation on a resolution for or against, or to do nothing further on it. We hope to get additional information from the state of Wisconsin as far as their potential position on it. And so I didn't put it on the agenda for a resolution or for a vote pending us getting all the information, rather than just getting a piece of information from an individual. Okay. Questions?
Makes sense.
Yep.
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, so we received a letter from Miss Janet Peterson, and she states, I live at 10815 Pheasant Court in Sister Bay. Last week I parked in the lot behind the post office and was cited for parking illegally. I parked in the area next to the handicap spot. One spot put on my handicap placard, and because my husband Fred has trouble walking due to a stroke, we stayed for 35 minutes. I write for two reasons. First, there is one handicap spot behind the post office. At least half of Sister Bay's population is over the age of 65, so to have only one handicap spot is not realistic in providing for those who want to enjoy the beach and park. Please consider adding 2 more handicap parking spaces. Secondly, the citation is for $25. This amount is out of whack for the reason illegal parking. If we are encouraging families to enjoy our beach and park, we should have a parking citation that doesn't cripple people. $10 would be more reasonable, make Sister Bay welcoming. Thank you, Janet Peterson.
Anybody, any trustee have any correspondence to add? New village board business items, starting on page 32 of your Zoom. Discussion regarding a recommendation of Plan Commission to accept a proposed CSM to grant a zoning request for parcels 181, well, as the parcels that are there, commonly known as 10440 Orchard Drive, and the parcel addressed as 10438 Orchard Drive. Consider a motion to adopt the resolution for the CSM. Consider a motion to adopt the ordinance.
Can you give me a little bit of background on,
Yes, ma'am. So this, I'll tell you what, let me pull a map up here. Okay, so 10440, commonly referred to as the patio site, located right here off of Orchard Drive and State Highway 57, 10438, which is the old Kramer farm now owned by Nick and Mary Deverly. They own both of these properties, the patio and the old farm site. So what they are looking to accomplish is through CSM, as shown in the packet on page 35. Is to extend the boundary line of 10440 down southward and also a little bit to the east to encompass the berm that is the septic mound, which also services by easement 10440, the old hotel property that was there. Right? So that's why that mound is as large as it is. You can see it pretty clearly there from aerial. So that in the future they can construct a bottling operation for their kombucha brewing facility. Currently that's located up at the Country Walk Shops. They'd like to move that out to the farm. So this is sort of the precursor for that. They do the CSM, we get a lot approved as such, and as a part of that, move the B1 zoning, which is currently on 10440, into that area around 10438, which is currently CS1. So extending that B1 into the new lot area.
by how much?
Page 35. So that whole, the entirety of what you see there is the lot denoted as lot 1. That then becomes B1. So all of that is B1.
Okay.
About how much space is that?
Approximately 5.6 acres.
Question, would they be able to, once they get that zoning, be able to parcel it off and sell it then as such zoning? Or is there any restrictions with that? I know that's not their intention, but.
Yeah, I mean, once something's on something, you can dispose of it at any time. When you talk about lotting it off, that would require further CSM. They'd have to meet the minimum lot and width requirements to do that.
And what's the triangle zoned?
B1.
Fronting the highway?
Miss Dean's property right here, is this what you're referring to, the triangle?
Yes.
Or are you referring to that?
No,
Okay, that's the state highway right of way.
Right.
This is B1.
so that's B1.
Yeah.
So it's very consistent.
Yeah, everything's consistent through here. We have no objections at the staff level. Plan Commission conducted a public hearing back in February. Plan Commission recommended it on to you all.
And this is just step one of a multi-step, because
Yes,
there
ma'am.
are going to be other hurdles.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'll make that motion.
Second.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Item 2, discussion regarding a recommendation of the Plan Commission to accept a proposal for conditional use permit. Consider a motion to adopt Resolution 352-06-2017, approving the conditional use permit for parcel 181-424-0002, commonly addressed as 10592 State Highway 57, for Jim Solansky for an apartment use.
Okay, now, did you want to make a motion? I got one motion about the resolution.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, you're right, we gotta go back up.
And the ordinance as well.
Yep, I'm sorry. Go back up. We have to do a motion and adopt the ordinance for the previous,
One's for CSM, one's for zoning.
right.
I'll make the motion to adopt an ordinance 248-06-2017.
Second.
Zoning, blah, blah, blah.
I'll second it.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Sorry about that. Should have been 1A. Now, number 2, consider a motion to adopt the resolution for conditional use permit for the address commonly known as 10592 State Highway 57 for Jim Solansky for an apartment use.
Okay. So board reports included in your packet on page 37. This went through Plan Commission and duly noticed public hearing was conducted for the conditional use. Effectively, Mr. Solansky is looking to be able to have a substantial portion of this property be under residential use, and that's acceptable under our zoning code as a conditional use. Served by public water and sewer. It's there and currently is utilized in a retail capacity for his woodworking business. Formerly the site of the domicile. Adequate parking is in play for what he wants to do.
Okay, so clear up some confusion,
Okay.
because you're really talking about 2 buildings.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
so one building will have the retail,
Right, the other building will be the
And-
apartment, the rear building back there that sort of appears with the gray color.
so it's
is
the
apartment.
rear building we're referring to for the conditional use.
Yes, sir,
Because the building up front
is the primary.
is the primary building, and resident use as an accessory use is allowable
Yes, sir.
because of the retail in it.
Yes, sir.
So it's the building in back that,
Is converting from retail to conditional use residential apartment.
He's actually a client of ours, so I should probably just recuse myself. from-
Recuse.
Yeah.
Yep.
He's going to live there, or he's going to rent it out to transient or
Both.
long-term?
As I understand it.
He'll stay there when it's not rented?
it's allowable.
Yeah.
It's allowable whether he's there or not.
Okay.
The primary building, because you have the accessory use as residential because of the retail that's there. And as a conditional use, it would be allowable if we give him the conditional use for the outbuilding, for the apartment. And what's the outbuilding currently used for?
It was retail.
Does that outbuilding also have sewer and water?
No. Yeah.
So they're gonna put it in then?
Presumably so, yes. Or-
Presumably?
I'm sorry. No, their access off of the bathroom in the main building. But yeah, they could expand over there and do things in the future.
So there's not a bathroom in the retail building?
In what's proposed to be the apartment building?
The conditional use permit that we're talking about.
No.
How do we allow,
You don't have apartment defined in your code. Colin? Am I mistaken in that?
Are you certain that there's not a bathroom facility in that? I believe there is.
That's not my recollection of it.
I've been in that building years ago, I do not recollect a bathroom.
It's my recollection that the bathrooms in the main building, it doesn't matter, I mean, from my perspective, because the apartment's not defined in the code.
Well, it's a
I'm not worried.
it's a living dwelling, though? It's intended to become a living
There is.
dwelling, and you're saying that's okay if
There
there
is
isn't a
no
bathroom?
plan.
There is a
There
bathroom
is a
I
bathroom, okay,
apologize.
good, all right.
Okay,
Okay, good.
in the retail.
No,
in the,
in the cottage.
right, the outbuilding.
You're
They're
talking
referring-
about the outbuilding.
It's got 3
That's
different
what my
names, the
question
outbuilding.
was, is the
It's got a
outbuilding.
I thought there
restroom.
was a picture.
I don't know when they did that, because they never came to the utility for permission to do that.
Well, how in the world would they have hooked up?
Well, they probably got someone, my guess is, they probably got someone who's on pipe from the main house over to that building. It does not have a meter of its own. It does not have a sewer and water hooked up to the main lines.
Interesting.
It does not require, it doesn't require its own meter because it's on the same property, correct?
I would have to look into that. I'm not so certain that that's a correct statement.
Okay.
But we would probably need to verify the installation or the construction of that line if they were never permitted for it.
If you ran sewer and water from their building over to that building, they should have gotten a permit and they should have had to pay for fixture units. Should have been impact fees.
Has he already purchased this property?
Yes. Give me a second.
Can I just? It's listed for rental as a one-bedroom, four-bedroom with a bath and a shower. So,
It says the site is served by public water and sewer.
Yeah, meaning it's on the property, not necessarily in the facility. Says that the property was previously used for the sale of crafts and gifts that used to be continued, albeit on a smaller scale than that of the domicile. Says the cottage currently features one bedroom, one bathroom, a kitchenette, a dining area, and a living area. So the way this is described, it appears to be before this individual renovated it. So Mike, it appears that was done sometime when it was still a domicile. This is constantly what we contend with in.
So how do we make it right? How do we, if we feel
We can go
that,
pull the property file and determine if impact fees were paid on it. For that bathroom, ultimately, if impact fees weren't paid on it, we'd do a calculation to figure out what the impact fees would be and assess them for those impact fees. That's assuming that the plumbing is all correct and appropriate.
and is that something that utilities will go review?
Well, we'd have to get in there and see, we'll have to look and see if there's any documentation when this was done. There's nothing that I know of, but that the meeting happened previous. My question would be whether it requires its own lateral and its own water meter. Because we do have, and I don't want to quote them off the top of my head, but we do have rules on buildings, even on the same property, requiring their own sewer and water meters.
That's what I was told and had to put in a second.
Well,
For your
you did,
garage?
that's
Yeah.
correct. You did.
I mean, so long as it's right, to me,
Right, and it would depend on when it
I'm
was done,
okay if
too,
they
but-
share, so long as it's installed right, they did what they're supposed to do, that's fine, but make sure it's on the up and up.
I would say, in my opinion, at this point, we need to investigate that.
Okay. So we have a couple of choices. We could choose not to approve this till that's checked out, move forward. We could choose to approve it subject to the investigation that the proper thing is there, and impact fees need to be paid, and whatever that they be paid. If it's not correct, then it doesn't go in effect till it's corrected.
so let's approve it subject to inspection. And then be done.
Okay. Subject to inspection or subject to,
Subject to inspection and satisfaction of all village requirements. I will tell you, this is one that was an after-the-fact one, that we've tried to get cleaned up.
What do you mean by
What, yeah.
after the fact?
Property was purchased, property was occupied. We learned of that occupancy and started moving towards compliance.
So it didn't go through the proper channels to begin with?
Yes, ma'am.
So what's your recommendation of what we should do?
What Kathy just said, approve it, and we'll go in it. Ultimately, we're not in a position to be able to do an inspection at this point because it's non-conforming, right? There's something going on there that isn't necessarily allowed. The presumption is that you all would grant that request for a conditional use permit, so assuming that you all make that motion second and it passes, then we'd go in and inspect it as such. If not, then we'd go in and put a cease and desist on the door, and they'd have to remove that occupancy.
I guess what we're trying to get to is,
How do you get them in compliance?
how do you get them in compliance?
But isn't there another issue that if they're operating right now and they haven't gotten,
There's another issue that's come up based on Kathy's comments, which is compliance with the Tourism Zone Commission.
I was going to ask, do they have a room tax?
well, yeah, but I mean, if they're doing this ahead of the conditional use, I mean, if they're out there and advertised right now,
So Kim will investigate that and take a peek. I'll give her a call tomorrow. We'll ensure all that's taken care of. Again, I'd go with what Kathy suggested, was approve it contingent upon satisfaction of village requirements.
I'd like to be a little more specific in
Yeah.
the motion than that.
Yeah.
If that's
Satisfaction
okay.
with utilities impact fees being paid and consistent with the village's ordinance enabling the Tourism Zone Commission.
Okay.
I guess I'm still a little hung up on they're operating right now before we've.
Well, do we know they're operating?
Okay,
I
They
don't,
could be advertising, doesn't mean they're operating.
Yeah.
okay.
We don't know that.
Okay.
Okay.
We could ask someone, but I don't know that that would be appropriate.
There'd really be nothing wrong with them occupying the structure. That's what it was there before. Meaning it was retail and accessory residential, it's retail and accessory residential. We could get into splitting hairs about, could they use the secondary building as an extension of that? They're trying to be on the up and up as well by going through the permitting process, and this is how we advise them to do that.
No.
Yeah. They've been compliant in everything since we've had conversations.
Okay, so could your motion be that the village board accepts the recommendation of the plan commission and passes and adopts resolution 352, which approves a conditional use permit for an apartment to be created in an outbuilding on the property which is located at 10592 Highway 57, subject to inspection and verification that all applicable fees as well as tourism zone requirements have been paid and met.
Impact fees, I think.
Yeah, that's
Is
just
that
fees.
all impact fees?
Just leave it, no, leave it
No,
as
just
fees,
fees?
because then there's, if we have to go in and put in a meter or something, we can
Okay.
do that.
Is that okay?
Can you start with your last sentence of that and reread it, please, Janelle?
Okay. Subject to inspection and verification that all applicable fees as well as tourism zone requirements have been met and paid.
I don't
Should
think
we-
that's specific enough.
Should we have something about
It's gotta be some-
ordinances for plumbing or what, utilities in there?
You can insert compliant with the village's utilities code.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so it's better.
The building.
Does that work for you, Mike?
And also compliant with that same verbiage for the room tax, the tourism zone.
Okay, how about subject to inspection and verification that the building is compliant with the village's utilities code and meets all tourism zone requirements?
Perfect.
Okay, any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Item 3, discussion regarding a recommendation of the Plan Commission to accept a proposed CSM. Consider a motion to adopt Resolution 353-062017, adopting the CSM for parcels 1810007312842E4 and 1810007312842E5, two unaddressed parcels on Country Lane.
Bear with me just a site to give us a full vote. Steve, I'm gonna ask a question of you, and this is, there was some phone tag happening earlier today between you and Janelle, and Janelle relayed some of that for me. So we've been through the process with this item to carry it through public hearing at the Plan Commission level. Plan Commission has recommended approval of a CSM joining those two lots. Let me show. What is that lot and that lot, correct? You see that from back there? It's the northern, it's like the northern two lots on those series of section lots out there.
That looks correct.
Okay, so the proposal was to create a CSM combining those two lots into one larger lot with the assumption that there was a buyer ready who was gonna construct a single home on both of those lots.
That's correct.
Okay, so I know they did an uplands, determination on it and found out, yes, they could, situate a home there. Janelle relayed to me that there was some consideration of recordation and when that would actually occur.
Don't need to worry about it. If we could just pass the CSM, that'll be fine.
Okay, so, okay,
Okay.
all right. Okay, so there was the background as well, in all of that. So we're looking for you all to adopt resolution 353-06-2017, combining those two lots. Steve will need a recordable copy from you on that vellum paper, and we'll do the recordation. Okay.
Is there anything else you want to tell us about that? Just,
No, sir, it's pretty straightforward.
any questions, comments? Need a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the CSM,
Is there a second?
adopting resolution.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Excuse me. Opposed? Carried.
For this next item, do you, Denise, and Chad to
Yeah.
step off?
Yep.
Yep, I just want to make sure that we have a quorum, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Good. Kathy, Scott, Nate.
Right.
Yep.
At some point in time, we could,
We can just,
No.
You're gonna
Abstain.
hang out.
Right.
Yeah. We can do that,
yes.
yeah.
So what we're going to do is I'm going to turn this over to Zeke to run through this portion of the agenda concerning the issuance of various licenses, alcohol, soda, tobacco, and the appropriate motions thereof. Denise Berto, myself, Chad Kadunkel will be abstaining, recusing ourselves from the discussion, since we have several of those within our own businesses, will be approved, hopefully.
Okay. So I'm gonna run all these through, in consent fashion. I'm gonna read all of them for each type and have you vote in aggregate, for all of the licenses. Yes, ma'am. So Class A beer and liquor licenses, Berto's by the Bay, agent owner Denise Alberto. Top Shelf Cafe and Gourmet, John Sieberlich, Shopco, agent owner Nick Stickler. Piggly Wiggly, agent owner Jay Keto. Firefly Outfitters, agent owner Colin Dahl. McAvoy's Culinaria, agent owner Scott McAvoy. For Class B, beer and liquor licenses, Husby's, John Sawyer is the agent owner, and Sister Ray Bowl, Penny Anschutz is the agent owner. Special B is issued to Little Sister Resort, that's Greg Sundstrom, agent owner. 300-seat B, Chop, agent owner Benjamin Ellers. Lure, Patsy Willette is the agent owner. Northern Grill, Ron McDonald is the agent owner. Al Johnson's, should be Al Johnson's Stabor, but we'll go Al Johnson's there. Lars Johnson is the agent owner. Boathouse of Sister Bay, Tim Cross is the agent owner. Class A beer licenses, Voigt's, Country Walk Amico, Dennis and Lisa Voigt, the agent owners. Sister Bay Mobile, Dave Leno is the agent owner. For Class B beer and Class C wine licenses, Churchill Inn, Mike Goldstone is the agent owner. Grassy's Grill, Jim Grassy is the agent owner. Sister Bay Inn, Alma. Anybody want to help me with that one?
Nicholas,
Nicholas. We're gonna go with that. Agent owner. Beers Out Wild Tomato, Britt Unkfer is the agent owner. Analog Ice Cream and Coffee, Rachel Lohman is the agent owner. Bay Ridge Golf Course, Eric Anderson is the agent owner. Door County Creamery, Jesse Johnson is the agent owner. Roots Inn and Kitchen, Sarah Doherty is the agent owner. Pasta Vino, Benjamin Ellers is the agent owner. Beginning in your packet on page 48 are the individual license applications and maps showing serving location. Ms. Christie Sully has been through and verified these. Christie, do you have any comments on the alcohol licenses?
Everybody was paid up and everything was presented correctly.
Okay. Anybody planning on serving in any new areas that you'd want to call out?
Not that I was aware of. Well, no, because Alice was serving in that last year, so,
Yep.
no.
Okay. Soda licenses for 2007.
Question here.
Yes, sir.
We have one that's not notarized, is that still
What page?
53? Page 53.
It doesn't particularly matter for the case of this, you all are authorizing it, it'll just need to be notarized by Christie afterwards.
Okay.
Which one is that?
McAvoy's.
McAvoy.
Yeah,
Okay.
so his signature's present. We'll just need to get that straightened out, you all will issue, we'll have to complete that.
Nice
So,
catch.
Yeah.
So on that, I'll call for a motion, a second, and vote on alcohol licenses.
I'll make that motion.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
You have to designate all agents separately, so you want to do a motion for that too?
Sure.
Okay. Who wants to do that?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. I'm gonna take an order of how they are in the packet, it looks like they got transposed, but, soda licenses, reading those off, Bay Ridge Golf, Berto's by the Bay, Carroll House, Chop, Churchill Inn, Coach Light Inn, Country Walk Amico, Door County Creamery, Analog, Grassy's Grill, Puzzi's, Boathouse and Sister Bay, Al Johnson's, Little Sister Resort, Lure, Northern Grill, Open Hearth Lodge, Pasta Vino, Piggly Wiggly, Pirates Cove, Shopco, Sister Bay Bowls, Sister Bay Inn, Sister Bay Mobile, Sister Bay Liberty River Fire Department, Top Shelf Cafe and Gourmet, Beers Out / Wild Tomato, Roots Inn and Kitchen. Call for a motion on that. Call for those licenses.
So moved.
Motion Duffy, second Bell, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, carries. For consideration of cigarette licenses, those will be issued to Berto's by the Bay, Top Shelf Cafe and Gourmet, Sister Bay Mobile, Country Walk Amico, and Piggly Wiggly. Have a motion on that item to issue cigarette licenses. Motion by
Second.
Bell, second by Baker, all in favor?
Aye.
Carries. Lastly is the page 94 and 95, the 2017 operator's license. I'm going to ask for a motion to accept these and issue licenses as presented in the packet.
So moved.
Second?
Motion Duffy, second Baker, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So, that carried?
I think so.
I didn't hear it, that's why I'm asking, I only heard two of you.
He was light, but yes,
Okay.
I think.
I'm curious.
Speaking to the microphone, Mr. Bell.
Such controversial matters.
I think that includes all of our issuance of liquor, beer, wine operators, soda, and cigarette licenses for 2017. There may be some that will be prorated and come before you later on in the year as new businesses open up or people explore new business opportunities. But it's all the existing.
Why do they need licenses for soda?
As a carryover, I don't know an answer for.
I believe
That's
it's a
way back.
statute.
Yeah. That's-
They sell soda at the fire station here.
Yeah.
It's just weird, it's a weird one. Laws that should be changed.
Well said. Okay. Item 5, discussion on the recommendation of the Planning Commission to approve development plans, development agreement from Door County Ventures LLC, i.e. DC Confectionery Domain FLP. Consider the appropriate motion for action. Page 96 on your Zoom.
Pull this up here also. Okay, so we became aware of unpermitted work at 10677 North Bayshore Drive, commonly known as the DC Confectionery. Staff issued a cease and desist order on the property, a stop work order on the property, and contacted the property owners to work on an after-the-fact permit. As we began to explore this, we realized that there was going to be one major hurdle, and that's the proposed operation is the change of occupancy from Mon Ami, which is a retail establishment, clothing store, to Dippy's 2, an ice cream shop. And under our zoning code, that's considered a restaurant. So the change in occupancy triggers a review of the parking compliance with 660403 J2H, compelled the developer to install 9 spaces. They have a total of 12 required, but only 3 existing on this current site, at least as I can picture it there, and they didn't argue that point. Or for the Plan Commission to adjust the parking required based on a myriad of factors. The developer may be able to install parking along Mill Road or to the rear with an easement by Grassy's Grill. I have had a conversation with Grassy's Grill. They are amenable to having a conversation about an easement to the rear of the property for access there. The developer is willing to entertain dedication of the land to the rear of the property as shown on the attached survey markup for public parking. The developer feels that if they are dedicating the land of the village, it should be the village's responsibility to install and maintain the parking. When this got taken on to Plan Commission, we had conversation about it. They reviewed the development agreement diagram and recommended approval on the condition that costs are shared for the infrastructure improvements. And I've received a tentative agreement from the developer that they're willing to pay for the asphalt work. And I propose the developer pay the village a sum of $5,000 to cover asphalting expenses. That way it's a fixed sum. We know what that is. We're not chasing dollars down later on. I just don't like chasing money down. I'd rather have it either in hand or in escrow, even if we may be over or under slightly on what the figure is. It's just much more efficient to do it that way. Other expenses will arise with the project related to line burial, which we'll need to get estimates on after preliminary engineering is completed. If they go the route of accessing through the Grassy's will have to agree in writing. So to be clear, the options that we discussed here look at page 110, you can see a survey map, just shows an official survey of the property. We're as follows. We could look at installing those 9 spaces along Mill Road and effectively expanding their existing 3 spaces, or we could look at utilizing a part of the village's land here at the rear part of their property to install parking along the backside. That would necessitate an easement from the Grassy's in order to make that connection over. Otherwise, you just have a dead end that wouldn't work for anybody. So we're operating a little bit in the blind, having to pull multiple parties together. I did not anticipate at the Plan Commission level that there would be a real conversation about who would pay for what. Sort of thought that would take place here at the board level about who would pay for what. So that I've had to go back and negotiate this sort of 3 times on how this would proceed, still without getting to a final point of approval by you all to do an agreement, or without a final approval from the Grassies to do an agreement. So ultimately, what I'm expecting this evening is that I get some direction on how to proceed with this, including approval of a draft version of the development agreement, which will authorize village staff to go and negotiate this and then enter into that development agreement. I have had a conversation with the representatives of Diffees. They have some concerns about executing such a development agreement until such a time they can actually see what the preliminary engineering work would be for this, to make sure they actually have access to the back, so they're not just swinging the door open and it's hitting somebody's BMW on the hood. I think that makes sense. I think we all would want to see what that actually would look like before moving ahead. The Grassies also want to see what it's going to look like before they would sign off on some kind of an easement document. So the way this would work is we'd end up having a CSM done, dedicating whatever portion of the property Robert E. Lee came up with as being feasible for parking. We would then take that as a village asset and be able to control it. There are a number of other factors that go into actually being able to do a parking improvement there. Nothing compels us to do it right away. Number one being burial of overhead lines. When we did the overhead line burial project throughout the rest of downtown, we tried to find some areas that we could squeak out some cost savings that maybe no one would notice that we left some overhead lines up. This just so happens this is one of the spots that we were able to save several $1,000s by leaving a couple of poles in the ground. So there's one right here on the corner, and there's another upriser right here and transformer box. So there's a line that actually extends back here. If we're going to move ahead with some kind of a parking lot back there, mea culpa, what we're going to need to do is put those lines underground to clean that up, or we're going to have to move the poles over. Either way, something's going to have to shift to be able to make all of that work. It could be that the transformer box that's sitting here gets relocated next to the driveway. That might be a cost savings for us to look at. So until I work through the engineering, I don't know what will be the cheapest way to go about fixing this. I just know that something's going to have to happen there. So that's where it stands today. You all could certainly direct me any number of ways to go about disposing of this, but in the meantime, again, they came in for an after-the-fact permit. We've been trying to work with them towards compliance, and the tentative agreement is they'll be on the hook for dedicating the land to us based on those parking plans. They'll also be on the hook for a $5,000 check to the village, which we will use towards constructing the parking back there.
So do we own the parking that Grassies uses?
We own this.
I understand, yep.
Okay.
I'm asking about
That's
Grassies.
Grassies.
Right, so that parking is owned by Grassies?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so whose idea is it that the village owns and takes care of the parking for a new business if the neighbor, that's not the way it works?
So I guess I'll give several different answers back to that. The first one is this is being driven by the village's parking code.
Okay.
So whether or not there's an actual demand for 12 parking spaces is a topic for conversation. Our code says you have to have 12 parking spaces. So somehow we have to come up with a mechanism for that to occur. They likely won't get all 12 parking spaces there. They'll get some of them in there. So Plan Commission, in looking at this one, okay, they're making an effort towards that. Not only that, if it's private parking, it can't be used all throughout the day. It's going to be used by those customers during the operating hours of the business, as opposed to public parking, which now can be used during festivals and events, off weekends, whatever that is, right? It's ours to utilize for parking purposes in the public. So it really came from comments out of the parking committee that said, Zeke, whenever you get an opportunity to pick up a few public parking spaces here and there, try to work towards that goal of working towards acquiring a few public parking spaces here and there.
So let's go with the scenario of now it's the end of July and town is crazy and all of their parking that they paid for is full and they complain that their customers have no place to park. What happens then? If it's their parking or subsequent owners, they think, oh, I'm buying this place, I have parking on the land. No, you don't, it's the village's parking. If the intent is that the business, because of its use, needs so many parking spaces, I think the business, because of its use, needs so many parking spaces. The village shouldn't be in the idea, you know, if you're gonna do that, we should be buying Grassies and buying Al Johnson's and To me, you're commingling activities. Let them figure out what they need for parking, let them put the parking in, let them comply like everybody else is complying.
Well, I think, Pat, the conversation started because they wanted to chop down all those trees there on Mill Road. And we went, whoa, we don't want them to do that. And then we looked at that space behind there, and it adjoins right to our public parking. And I thought that if we could add that to our parking, we might even get more parking there by adding that strip in there. In other words, if you, right now, if you look at it closely, there's a strip there where there's a fence, and there's several feet. But if you added another row there, you could snug in, and I think you could actually get a lot more parking in there by adjoining it to the village property. That's what I see. So and that building's landlocked, and again, unless you want them to knock out trees and all that, then.
Well, and it would be impossible to really park cars on Mill there, because if they would angle, they just wouldn't be able to get out once they were in.
That was what they said. When I presented the two options to them, said, look, you can either put them over here on Mill or you can put them behind. They said, we don't want to put them on Mill. That's a safety issue. We have kids that run around back here. They're going to dart out between the cars. Plus, traffic's often backed up there on Mill. And so just to try to back out on Mill is problematic. So the only one we see as a viable option is to go behind the building. I guess I will go with Pat's point. That's a good point. You know, is it time of use that we really want to go after maximization of? That's the biggest case I can see for public parking, that it's not just used by one particular business customer. Downtowns that are really successful have effectively all public parking, and people come and go as need be. Unfortunately, that means the cost burden is on the public to maintain those parking spaces. Downtowns that have sort of a fragmented business district, I think about Cedarburg, and that's a really great example that we've discussed at the parking committee level, which is you go to eat at the ice cream shop, you park your car, and then you better be ready to move that car as soon as you're done eating that ice cream cone, because they have a giant sign up there that says you will be towed if not a customer, you know, at this moment, kind of a thing, and that's at every business there. So move your car from this space over to the restaurant and eat dinner, and then move your car somewhere else completely to enjoy the public amenities, because there's not enough parking spaces for the public amenities. So it's a valid point.
It is a good point, and I guess we're lucky in Door County at this point that none of us, I mean, people park in any lot and go to all these businesses. It happens all the time. Nobody, I don't think anybody even has a sign that says don't park here.
Yeah, I don't think we do.
I mean, our neighbor did for a while, but he even got rid of those.
You had a guess at what that lot was gonna cost.
$30,000.
And I think the real debate at Plan Commission wasn't, should we do it, it's how much of that burden should we take? Because that $5,000 doesn't seem, it seems awful low to me. They're picking up an awful lot for an awful little.
I've yet to see a Robert E. Lee build that's less than $5,000. That would be engineering, not the construction or the wine burial. I'm serious, think about it. You talk about electric, start moving poles, you're thousands, not hundreds,
Okay.
thousands,
Yep.
just for the electric.
And you
The
wouldn't, then you
asphalt will
wouldn't
be
necessarily have to
thousands.
bury that.
Robert E.
No,
Lee will
you
be
could-
thousands.
Shuffle them around. But I mean, to Pat's point, it may be another $5,000 just to shuffle them around.
But that's why it should be a percentage instead of a fixed dollar amount.
I think
At
it
some
should be
point-
fleshed out more before what's it gonna cost? What's it gonna look like? How many spots might the village pick up?
The unfortunate parts with this, and this is the balancing act that we do, they're not in compliance. And so what we should do at this point is send them a letter that says, we're sorry, you're not in compliance, you can't open. You're dead in the water. You didn't plan appropriately, we're not gonna work with you, you're done. Plan Commission said that's not what we wanna do. We wanna work with these folks just like we would any other business owner. We wanna try to bring them into compliance, and here's a mechanism that we can see to do that.
At some point in time, we know Mill Road is going to have to be reconstructed. We just don't know when.
Yeah.
Would we not be considering removing that pole at that time anyway?
Probably.
And that would be at our cost. So it's a little, if we choose to do that, you can kind of offset it by, sooner or later, we would do it anyway. I also agree, I don't think $5,000 is enough, and I don't know that, I don't think the village, unless it actually connects to the other parking lot and that, you know, little grassy area goes away. I don't know that we should be taking ownership of it. Obviously, Grassy's is closed in the winter, so is the confectionery. We don't need the parking, it doesn't need to be plowed. But if the village owns it, then do we need to,
Something that we've seen this year, and they've discussed, is we're now seeing people open up their doors for that holiday period. So really
Thanksgiving through New
before
Year's?
Thanksgiving, a few days after New Year's. The confectionery has discussed being open, at least during that time period. But last year, we had 30-minute waits at some restaurants downtown, so it continues to gain traction. If we do this Christmas lighting thing we're talking about, I wonder what that'll do to traffic and how people will be open. We do plow out the Grassy's parking lot when requested, meaning when somebody has a project going on or
We, the village?
village parking lot.
Grassy's parking lot is a village
No,
parking lot?
I'm sorry, I shouldn't refer to it as Grassy's parking lot. The parking lot across from the beach.
Okay.
Our parking.
It's our parking lot.
Right,
That's just, from a reference standpoint, we don't have a name for it, so I call it Grassy's
Okay.
parking lot. We need a name for
Be
it.
across from Helm's Lot.
I mean, we're gonna call it Duffy's Lot.
No, not my lot.
I can't remember the wording that Nate used, but I liked it. That, they have everything, to gain by this. And maybe we can throw something, we can be part of the solution, but ownership and maintenance, I think, should fall on them.
Okay.
Okay, and along that line though, then, why are we even entertaining this? I mean, if you can get more parking spots maybe until somebody shows me that, you need parking spots. If anybody else was to deliver a new business proposal, they need to come in with drawings and say, here's what the parking is gonna look like. Their engineer does that. They need to come to you with a drawing performed by somebody that they compensate to show you where 12 spaces are going. And if they wanna start talking about donating it or this or that, what's the cost? What's the village on the hook for? And what are you gonna get? They do it, we approve it. That's what I say. That's how we work. We shouldn't be because, they made a mistake, I'm sympathetic, but that doesn't mean now that the burden shifts onto us. The burden is with the developer, not the village.
I also had, if we don't even get to this, I
Yeah,
guess
I
it's
think we're getting there.
a moot point, all kinds of comments and questions about the development agreement as written.
Yeah, and again, where this came from was the parking committee. Basically said, look, anytime we get a chance to pick up a few parking spaces, pick up a few parking spaces.
Well, I guess when we talked about this, I thought we talked about this, but maybe we didn't. We looked at it as an opportunity for, yes, the village to get the land, yes, parking to be done, but not really to be our cost, because we do have the leverage in that. Not trying to use leverage as a bad word, but because of what Pat was saying, those exact reasons. But like what Pat's saying, we have to see that it will be tied in with Grassy's. This is what it will look like. It will create this many parking spaces, because it is in our best interest, at least at one level, to have the parking spaces so they're not private. But what's that really worth? It's not worth a lot.
$11,000 a space.
Well,
When I think about it in those terms,
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
that's basically been our value to construct
yeah.
this parking
But
lot,
it's-
the other one by Braun.
It's probably not worth us to spend it for right there as a village.
I'm
It's
sorry,
worth it
wait.
for them.
Did you just, maybe I misheard you, but did you say it costs $11,000 a space to construct it?
We got this one donated to us.
Okay.
And we got $325,000 from DOT for that public parking space.
Okay.
They paid for the installation, they paid for the curb and gutter. That all averaged out to about $11,000 a space.
Okay. Where I'm going with this is, and maybe I'm not thinking of it right, but if you're looking at trying to develop 9 spaces at $11,000, that's $100,000. The idea of sharing with the village and
No,
getting
no.
5, okay,
No,
that's
no,
why I'm
yeah,
asking,
no.
that's why I'm asking.
So again, that includes land acquisition. So
Okay.
the big challenge with acquisition of public parking in the downtown is the land acquisition piece. Either we've got swamp or water or something that already has a building on it. So where do you go? And the answer from the parking committee's perspective is we'll find these little pocket parking lots. To some degree, we've tried to handle it by making more efficient use of our existing parking. So we've painted lines, in different places, really maximize things that way. We've also built out 2 new big parking lots, largely on state expense, right? DOT and DNR picked up significant portions of both of those parking lots. So now the state agencies are gone. They're not here to build us any more parking lots. We're down to the meat and potatoes of what does it cost to build a parking lot. The biggest chunk of that construction cost is land acquisition. In this case, it's roughly $30,000 of land value they would be contributing in perpetuity to the village. That is an asset we can do what we will with, right? Do we, to Kathy's point, do you end up reconfiguring this curb line here and that becomes a bigger parking lot at some point? Do we have a conversation with the Grassies and now all of a sudden we've got a double row of parking there? That's where the real value is. It's not necessarily in this one piece. It's in the assemblage of a couple of these pieces to make something more than the parts of the whole. If you look at it as a one-off and say, well, this is a $30,000 thing, and maybe we'll have $10,000 wrapped up in asphalt and moving the power lines around, I think that's reasonable. Maybe that's not what we want to do. Maybe we want to make that totally a private sector thing and have the private sector worry about it. You'll lose the value of public parking and the acquisition value of the $30,000 in land costs that we leave on the table. Hey, good way with it.
Can Robert E. Lee do something for under $2,000?
Don't ask me, ask Robert E. Lee. I mean, really, we don't have the information.
Right, we don't have the information, and with reconfiguring, using some of that space, you know, could they do something that we could feel comfortable with, you know, expending a small amount of money to look at the bigger picture?
So here's the other pieces, right, and maybe I'm doing a poor job of this. So as I talk to the Grassies, for 4 years now, they've had conversations with me to say, gosh, everybody else has done these fantastic outdoor areas, and we haven't. And that's because, in part, we have this parking code that compels them to maintain parking. But all these other businesses don't necessarily have that same level of parking. Some of them have more, some of them have less. I guess what I'm getting at is it depends on when you built your building and what you installed at the time it was built, or later through subsequent acquisition. It makes a lot of sense to me if I look at this and I think longer term about what should go on here, that this back portion back here just gets gobbled up by our public parking lot and we get much more public parking in here altogether. Maybe they do come out here to the side and do some other something or another. Maybe we end up with a double row of parking down the middle here and now you've got them coming from both directions in parking. I don't know what that is until an engineer looks at it. I know that if we leave it in private hand A and private hand B, they'll continue the suboptimal layout, which is what they currently both have, and ultimately those problems end up getting shuffled onto the public coffers, and we're not being compensated in any fashion for it. We just keep building parking lots, and nobody's really putting anything back into the kitty. While this ultimately may not be the most fruitful of dialogues that we've had, at least it's been a dialogue to say, look, we need to have a conversation about how we're going to handle public parking going forward, or how we're going to handle private parking going forward and fulfilling the demands of the parking code. In part, we're looking at the code and figuring out if the code is really valid and what we want it to be. But today, as it is, the code says you need to put in 9 more parking spaces there somewhere.
Yeah, I guess I'd like to see how many parking spaces you could eke out of
Get in
it.
there,
Well, I mean,
yeah.
the ultimate, and it's just to me so obvious to just add that parking there, and you're not really creating another parking lot, you know, like this big spot that's empty in the winter. I mean, it's kind of just back there, and it's just gonna, you know, I mean, I think you get way more than 12, but it would be nice to see.
One thing to keep in mind too, and I agree, parking, whatever. Quite honestly, I honestly do not feel the village has a parking problem, okay?
I agree,
Yeah.
but right there is a
I come from large
problem.
metropolitan areas.
Yeah.
We could get double the amount of visitors before we really have a parking problem. But anyway, besides that.
It's because people don't want to walk.
We have a lazy people problem.
Okay, but if you go anywhere else, I mean, you go to Naples, Florida,
No,
seriously.
This letter we got earlier,
95
right, she says
watts
there's only
on
one handicap parking stall there. There's 4. There's one on the north side of the building, there's one on the south side of the building, there's 2 right across the street that we've installed. So it's the same thing Dave's talked about, which is people are used to parking right at the building in that exact spot. And that's, to your point, that's not how people park everywhere else. You
Right,
walk
right.
a block.
Right. But anyway, my other point was gonna be, people like coming here because it's a quaint, natural setting, okay? So now, the little bit of grass that's there, take it down, make it all parking spots. So now, you start talking about more outside things, you got people, how many people do you really wanna go sit in a place where now you're sitting next to a hot grill of a car in the parking lot? I don't, quite honestly. The idea of leaving some green between businesses and parking lots so that it's not asphalt building asphalt. I don't know, I mean, if they need to do it, if you wanna get, again, if they wanna get a drawing, but to me, we don't have any idea what the cost is, and I got a feeling it's gonna be more than we're thinking it's gonna be. 5,000 is, I'll be shocked if that's anywhere near half of what the value is, okay? And what does it really look like, you know? So, if you wanted to say, hey, whether it's Robert E. Lee or some other design firm, maybe with the business, we'll split the cost of getting a plan so that we can further discuss a arrangement around parking before we know if they own it or we own it or
One
whatever.
thing and this is stuff that we're, I guess, working on a parking committee, which we've kind of paused at because we've been waiting on some information. You know, there's not one person that's read our parking code that thinks it is worth a damn for downtown Citrus Bay. And Zeke brought up a good point, where most areas like ours, they don't want to, you know, going back years, like back when Citrus Bay had so much parking, and one of the things I didn't even think about with the garage was, oh, parking code. Oh, garage maybe wouldn't have never happened if there wasn't a moratorium on that. So that, there's one business not there. Al Johnson's, maybe they got enough parking. Stabor wouldn't have happened. I mean, think of all the things that wouldn't have happened. CHOP would never have happened. So we have to think about like the bigger picture too. Like, yeah, do we want parking lots right there? No, we want them on the fringe a little bit, and we want people to walk. But do we want to not encourage business activity? So, because that's stifling 9 spots to add a little ice cream shop. I mean, I don't think any of us agree that's code makes sense.
Well, then maybe we should be looking at the parking code.
We are.
Yeah, we are. We are. And Yenny took a risk in her development, willing to pay for this penalty to build spots, hopeful that we will come to our senses and change it. Which is amazing of her.
So, yeah,
So the boathouse, they took that same
Yeah.
gamble, that it was, well, we'll sign the development agreement, you
Yeah.
guys will hopefully be, you know, good sports and help everybody
Yeah.
out.
And
Something
lure.
makes sense, lure too, yeah,
Yeah. So,
Although Boathouse did put in a bunch of parking.
yeah.
Yeah, well, that would
Well,
help, that would help Yenny, I mean, that parking.
If we, I didn't think about this from this perspective earlier, but if we do this for them and after the fact, does that set a precedent? And then who else are we going to be assisting? Or maybe, if that business, another business wants some assistance, but doesn't really work out in our plan, we don't think that's a good thing. Where does that leave us?
Yep. You got the ice cream factory, another ice cream, okay, he's already said his intent is over there. He could come and say, hey, you're gonna pay for something like that, work the same deal over here. I think we have to be careful.
Yeah,
what
we do
we're
have
at.
to be very
I mean, that's
careful.
the same business, on the same corner of the same thing at the same time. I mean,
yeah.
I'm not saying we shouldn't, I'm just saying I think we need to understand the unintended
Tread lightly.
consequences. Right.
Yeah,
Make sure-
we need to get
Pulling
parking
this,
codes.
together and things that I can see, options that you can move on. Option one is you just table this off, right, until we're done with the parking code, and we bring it up at such a time the parking code's complete. Option two, you refer it back to the plan commission, have plan commission make another evaluation to it, we adjust the development agreement, it then gets kicked back up here. Option three, you direct me to make the adjustments tonight to the development agreement and say, look, we want this to be a private sector solution to a private problem. You're required to put in 9 spaces. We'd like for you to follow the same deal that we did with Yenny and follow that model, which is we're going to adjust the parking code. We don't know what it will be, but we're working on it hard. You might have to install all 9. You won't have to install more than 9, but maybe you'll only have to install 2 by the time we're done with the parking code. And we'll give you until 2019 to do that installation work, same as we did for Yenny, and you'll be subject to the code that's in place at that time. That way they continue to operate. Yet another option is we do a cease and desist order and say, look, we're unable to reach an agreement. You guys, sorry, but you can't open the ice cream shop this year.
How far are they in their construction? Are they ready to open? Did they have to do a lot of
The
remodeling?
last time I looked inside, they had everything there. Mike, did you see anything any different?
No, we haven't done a final inspection yet.
It looks like the ice cream cooler and the sinker in there, yeah.
I mean, if they're amenable to doing what every other business did, I would say, fine, let's move forward.
I think that,
But I do have many questions here.
so, they've been told a couple of different things based on where we have been in this process. They just sort of came along at a bad time as we're in the middle of doing stuff. Whatever I go back with to explain to them, look, this is how we're going to do it. If this is the conversation I'm hearing around the table about, not necessarily we want this to be a public parking lot, I tell you the one that I'd recommend is that we go the route that we did with Yeni, which is to say, look, you're gonna be subject to the code that's in place in November of 2019, and we're working on it. You don't have to give us any land, you don't have to give us a $5,000 check. We're gonna enter into a very abbreviated development agreement that says that you're gonna do something about parking according to the code in place in 2019. We'll just copy Yeni's development agreement, change the names on it, and go on.
That doesn't mean, though, that in that interim, that further conversations could not be had.
Sure.
But you are also right, Pat, that green space, as small as it is, is a buffer. Granted, I don't know that there's a lot of trees, but trees could be planted
But there are
for
some
shade
there.
and,
Well, we all know as well as anybody that they want it to be green space too. You just gotta have a couple, they don't want it to be parking, they're just trying to figure out a solution to be able to do business. So, it's the last thing they want.
That was one of their concerns, is I was a little bit facetious when I said open to the back door and hit the hood of a BMW. They wanna know if they have enough room for 2 tables out back so that somebody can sit there, in between.
they're not doing anything on the exterior, are they?
No. I would suggest we do the Yeni style agreement.
I agree.
Okay.
But they're fully aware of the risk of that though too, like, we may not.
I've gotta have that conversation with them.
Yeah,
Right,
just make
that's
sure
what-
that there's no guarantees, like,
Yeah. I mean, they may elect to bring the project to a halt on their own at that point. But I'll have a conversation with them and say, look, this is how they felt around the table with the
and you're
board.
as knowledgeable as anybody about how our meetings are going, so, but it's still, you don't wanna give
Well-
somebody a hope that, that's risky.
Okay, so I'll do a redraft and bring it back.
Can I make a comment on page, there are 2 things that are general, that are, if this is kind of the boilerplate development agreement,
Full page.
98. Starting with line 30, and it's kind of the second half of that. The changes to the exterior walls or other architectural features may be changed with the consent of the zoning administrator. I don't think that's right.
So this is one that I inserted after the Al Johnson's project. Ultimately,
I think it should be, the plan commission should be aware of it. And I'm just commenting,
Sure.
you can chew on it, but that gives the zoning administrator an awful lot of latitude with a project that went through plan commission, and I think that,
What were you trying to accomplish? The issue of what happened at
so
the board
boathouse,
and the
right, so
boathouse?
boathouse needed to move the steps from one side of the building to the other because of the state plan amendment, or at Al Johnson's, we'd already,
So the issue was, the plan commission and/or you were not notified
right,
that any of that occurred.
Right.
So we're trying to get a notification would occur if there's any changes to start with.
right.
Okay? And if you want to add plan commission notification, fine. But I think the idea was at least get notified.
notified, right.
Right, to start with.
oftentimes when they've done this, no, of course, the notification piece, but they're on some kind of a deadline with a contractor to get things done. So they run into something in the field that precludes them from doing what it is that got approved by the Plan Commission. With Boathouse, the state said, sorry, you can't do that. In which case, their whole project would have ground to a halt, and I did. I ground their whole project to a halt and told them they had to go to Plan Commission, which it was great. They did what they were supposed to do, but it seems like those kind of changes are common sense to me. They go before Plan Commission. Rarely is there any substantive debate about it. The Al Johnson one it's a different animal, but.
Okay, so, but you can put the notification in there for yourself, the zoning administrator, and the plan commission. You're working on new zoning codes, correct?
Yes, sir.
So, between the plan commission and the zoning administrator, you can figure out how, what
What's the response mechanism?
parameters, and, you know, when it needs to be notified and when it doesn't.
Okay.
Just notification, not approval?
No, you have to start with notification. If you don't know what's happening,
Okay.
it's a way to make sure that
Yeah.
the zoning administrator and the plan commission is aware that something changed.
So is there a small print somewhere that says any changes to existing code need to be approved by somebody?
It's in our code, and then somewhere buried in this agreement, it talks about that also.
I do think, though, that
I just want
even
some-
though that paragraph is basically talking about notification, I think the wording could be a little different, so it's glaringly obvious that you change anything, you gotta tell somebody.
Right, that was my point. It's
Yeah.
not, if you start talking about just well, yeah, we're changing something, we notified them.
Yeah, that
Yeah, no,
also.
Who approved
Yeah.
it?
That's not what I meant by
Yeah.
notification.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was, first of all, you guys have to be aware of it.
Yeah,
Right, right.
there's gotta be a trigger. And then some enhanced review mechanism. So from my mind, if somebody said, hey, Zeke, we're gonna jack this thing up 35 feet, I'd go, whoa, Zeke's not approving that, right? But if it's, hey, Zeke, we ran into this rock outcrop, we need to move a wall 2 feet over, I would read the code and go, okay, is it consistent with the zoning code, is it inconsistent with the zoning code? And ultimately, okay, let's approve that or let's deny that based on the zoning code. It should tie back to the code somehow.
Somehow. And then on page 102, that was specific to them, wasn't it? The addition of an ice cream parlor.
Yep.
Because it was talking about change of occupancy where it should be use, right?
So some specific things about this development agreement. They wanted to carve the property owner out of any responsibility for the whole project. And our response was, no, that's the way this works.
Okay.
The property owner has to be held responsible. So they wanted some language in here that delineated who's the lessee,
Okay.
who's the lessor, who owns the property, who's operating the business. I don't know what their internal financial arrangements are like, but ultimately I ended up tying it all back to making the property owner somehow responsible ultimately for everything.
Okay. So you're gonna go back, you're gonna talk to them, you're gonna redraft and bring back?
Yes, ma'am.
So they're still on hold for another month?
Right, that's the question.
We could issue a temporary occupancy permit. No, I'm sorry, we could continue the temporary occupancy permit. We've already issued one to them based on Plan Commission's meeting that night. And conditions being met, we're now changing those conditions. We'd go back and add conditions onto that temporary occupancy permit stating that, you know, they'd enter into a development agreement approved by the village board based on a redraft.
And the issues that we're
Yes, sir.
concerned about for the
Yes, sir.
redraft. And they would
It was
understand,
satisfied.
realize it still had to be satisfied at the village board level.
Yes, sir. It would satisfy parking, as,
Approved by the village board,
Oh.
period.
yes, but I'm trying to figure out how to word that. So it's
As approved by the village board,
Yeah.
period.
November 2019, right? The parking code that's in place November 2019 as approved by the village board.
Or before.
Yeah, if you guys want to go, that's what we did for Yenny, it was November 2019.
And just the idea that they realize that for some reason they're not amenable to that at such time, there could be you're closed.
Yeah, well, they'd just be on a temporary until then,
That could take them through the whole season.
yeah.
I'm sure it will.
You know, if that darn parking committee would get going.
If we get our wetland delineation, somebody's
We
been
have it.
sitting on,
Yeah, you're sitting on it.
Okay.
Is it that bad?
So is this what you want in the minutes? Fidanco pointed out that the parking committee is working on formulating parking code revisions. He also noted that new development agreements which were recently approved contain provisions which state that whenever parking code revisions are finalized, the owners of the affected businesses must comply with the new regulations. It was the consensus that the development agreement for the confectionery property shall be revised in such fashion that similar provisions are included in that document. The trustees jointly reviewed the development agreement and a few revisions were noted. Jackson took note of all of them. Okay?
Yeah, but that's not the
That-
motion.
right.
Yeah.
That's just the conversation.
Conversation.
Yeah,
But is
that's
that
fine.
gonna, okay.
I think the motion is to direct the administrator to redraft the development agreement in a similar fashion as present with, Rania LLC.
Okay.
And to allow the continued temporary
Yep,
use
occupancy.
occupancy.
For how long?
We right now have issued it based on entrance into this development agreement. I don't recall the date.
So you could say the next village board meeting. Because hopefully be back by then, and then at that village board meeting, if we need to continue it again, we could.
Let me go look at the one that we just issued and make sure that's consistent, but yeah, we can amend things.
So there's a temporary occupancy permit for, whatever that is.
Dippies,
For Dippies?
Dippies.
Dippies
It's
food.
true.
Shall continue until when? Or shall be extended?
Shall be extended.
Yeah.
Until the date of the next village board meeting.
Okay, who wants to make that motion?
I will.
Kathy, second?
I'll second it.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Item 6, discussion regarding passing and adoption of Resolution 358-062717, adopting the 2016 Utilities Electronic Compliance and Annual Maintenance Report.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Overview? Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Excellent job, Mike. Excellent job. To Mike,
Good job, Mike.
to the whole
job,
crew.
Mike.
To the whole
Is there
crew
anything
for
you'd like
straight
to say,
A's.
Mike?
No, we got a 4.0. The state for a grade, you can't get any better than that.
Great, excellent.
We're consistently way under all our permit levels.
Great job. Great job.
Wonderful.
Oh, I do have one question, because in the Plan Commission meeting earlier tonight, there was a question by a member asking about all the growth in the village and expansion of the sewer and water plant, and what is our current capacity right now, Mike?
Well, they call us a 1 million gallon a day plant. We're actually 975,000 gallons a day capable.
Okay,
We're nowhere near that. We're nowhere near capacity.
We got a lot of ways to go.
half?
In our busiest month, which is July, in 2016, we were actually less than half.
Okay,
And that's probably because we've stopped a lot of
Leaks.
leaks coming into the system, which has reduced us by several 100,000 gallons.
okay,
So no, we're nowhere near at capacity.
Thank you.
Either water or sewer.
Item 7, discussion regarding implementation of Premier Resort Area Tax, consider a motion for action if appropriate.
Take it away, Tasha.
Okay. This was a discussion we had at the Finance Committee level. The Finance Committee is recommending the board address this. Wisconsin law permits that the Village of Sister Bay is able to impose a Premier Resort Area tax as long as the village adopts a resolution proclaiming intent to impose the tax, and the resolution is approved by a majority of the electors in the village voting on a referendum. There's a timeline associated with this, which I can go over in a little bit. The tax is up to 0.5% sales tax. It's collected by the retailers and remitted to the Department of Revenue, just like any other sales tax is. It's the same form. There's a specific description of retailers that that this tax would apply to. It's not all retailers, but it is specific to, I should say a number of them. Retailers would have to contact the Department of Revenue to determine whether this tax would apply to them or not. We had an economist, Travis Arthur from the Department of Revenue, give us an estimate. Sales tax is not broken down by zip code or anything less than county. So in order to do an estimate, we took the amount of commercial property in Sister Bay as a percentage of the entire county's commercial property, and used a factor of that with our population as a percentage of the entire county's population to come up with $174,000 that we can gain on an annual basis. Both Zeke and I believe this is probably a conservative estimate because one, you're using population, and obviously tourism is the largest driver of sales in Sister Bay. And because commercial real estate as a percentage is, go ahead.
Yeah, so we're a commercial center here, so if you think about how people travel about, they live out in Liberty Grove or in one of the adjoining communities and come here to do shopping, so that tax revenue is actually collected here. So we're outsized based on the estimate.
So, before you continue,
Yeah, the $174,000 equates to about an 8% tax increase. So it would be huge for the village.
Clarify, all right, so equates to an 8% property tax increase on real property if you were looking for a different source for this revenue.
Right.
and what allows us to do this?
State statute.
State
I know,
statute.
I'm looking for the explanation for the board members that were not on the board when the village was authorized to do this.
So 2004, 2006, somewhere in the early 2000s, the state was going through the premier resort tax. Two communities in Door County were specifically authorized under the legislation: Village of Sister Bay, Village of Ephraim. So that's where our authority comes from.
And we retain that authorization to do that
Yes, sir.
based on that legislative action at the time.
Yes, sir.
The proceeds of this tax can be used for infrastructure expenses. The state statute defines that really rather broadly, including roads, any kind of construction or improvement to parking lots, access ways, transportation facilities, sewer and water, exposition center facilities, including those used for conventions, trade shows, or musical or dramatic events, or other educational or cultural events, parks, boat ramps, beaches, and other recreational facilities, firefighting equipment, and other equipment or materials dedicated to public safety or public works. So really, really broad for what we could use this money for. We obviously, that's my job, to come up with new ways to generate revenue for the village. And this is one of them. And $174,000 is huge.
And the timing and the process procedure?
There's two kind of timelines to this. If there is a spring primary election next year, we would have to have a resolution no later than December 11th of this year. So that would give us our 70 full days between adoption of the resolution and the spring primary in February. A majority of the electors would then vote in February to vote yes, and the earliest effective date we could implement this would then be July 1 of 2018. If no spring primary is held, and we don't know the answer to that yet, the election may be scheduled for April 3rd, meaning we would need to adopt the resolution no later than January 22nd, 2018, giving us an earliest implementation date of October 1st. It has to be the first of a quarter for implementation. There is no guidance in the legislation whether the resolution should be advisory or binding. And the referendum can be as simple as, should the Village of Sister Bay levy a 0.5% sales tax on tourist-related items sold, leased, or rented through tourist-related retailers? As far as why we need to do this tax, I went back to last year's capital planning meeting and our discussion about which roadways need to be redone in the village. Right now, we have about $3.5 million in roads that are pretty much in immediate need of repair. And that's roads and storm sewer and a couple of other things, about $3.5 million. Right now, we don't have the capital to do that.
I'm going to ask a task question. What do you mean by immediate need? To me, immediate need means it's falling apart.
Medium term.
Okay.
So 5 to 8 year horizon, not today. We don't have anything that's absolutely crumbled or falling apart today.
Yes, we do.
Well,
That would be Bluff side.
Plus,
Okay.
that's kind of immediate
hey,
need.
cars still run on it. They're not caving in anywhere.
Cars kinda hop
right?
down there,
Shell's
yes.
running the wrong way. It's all right.
Yeah, so I got a 4x4.
My point was, as you go around the village though, there are a few areas that we're looking to do something soon.
Yes, sir.
But the infrastructure is not crumbling throughout Sister
Right.
Bay as it immediately needs to be done. Okay.
Right.
That's all.
You get the pulse right in about that.
So, I'm sorry, go ahead, Dave.
No, I'm done.
I asked Zeke to run the numbers on 200 or 250?
250.
$250,000 home.
Round numbers.
And okay. What an 8% increase would mean on somebody's taxes, and he came up with round number of $110.
Get an increase of 8% on the Sister Bay tax bill.
And as we know, most homes are valued at more than that, and certainly businesses. If you would take that $110 and I believe divide it by the 0.5%, and a family or whoever lives in a home, you have one tax bill. You would have to spend the equivalent of $22,000 in the village in the year to pay that same $110. So I didn't double check it, but I'm presuming his calculations are correct. I think those are important numbers as we talk about whether we move forward on this. And certainly, the more our roads are traveled, the busier our village is. Certainly the people using them, coming up and visiting, it would be nice if, they shared in the bill.
And I think
And
that
not
was,
put it all on,
and I think that was part of the original discussion about that finance. And previously at the board years ago was, does the village property taxpayer, should they be responsible for all the wear and tear of 250,000 people coming up here on a weekend? Or should it be like in other locations, and I always talk about skiing because I ski during the winter. Most any other resort area that you go to, the fees and taxes that are associated with your stay or your spending or whatever are incredibly multiples of what is charged in Door County or other places in Wisconsin for that matter. I mean, even the Dells is considerably more than Door County. But I mean, my last trip out west, the taxes and the fees, they call them, there was the local village had a fee, then there was a state fee, and then there was a resort tax fee. It was a total 18%.
when I was in San Francisco a few months ago, I paid between 23 and 25% tax.
I think this is a good thing.
Yeah, I think we should do it. I think it might be worthwhile to say the intention is is infrastructure, not looking for some slush fund for operational expenses.
No,
you know, but I'm just saying, get out ahead of it. This isn't a tax increase.
Because this is voted on, correct, right?
Right.
General public will vote.
Yes,
Yeah.
right, and you have to decide whether, as Tasha said, as you look into it, we would have to put together a marketing campaign to inform the electorate and the property owners what it is, what we're trying to do, and why we would be trying to do this, okay? And we'd also have to determine by resolution, as I understand it, can be either advisory or it can be binding. That's not clearly spelled out in statute.
So we have a question into DOR. It also in one place indicates you have to have a resolution, and another you have to have an ordinance. I asked Tasha some questions, and
Yeah.
It is, you have to have a resolution proclaiming your intent to impose the tax.
Okay.
The resolution must be approved by a majority of the electors at a referendum. And then you essentially draft an ordinance
And I have one.
that goes enabling that.
So resolution to do it, referendum, vote,
Mhm.
approve, disapprove. If it's approved, then an ordinance to implement.
Yes.
So, I mean, you'd also have to have one more public hearing after the referendum to do the ordinance.
And I think when the village has done other things in the past, when we have wanted to make sure that money was spent or put away for certain things, you know, it was very well documented, resolution or ordinance, I can't remember specifically which one, so that, you know, everybody knew, coming and going as boards change and everything, that, you know, and I think that's an important key also on letting the electorate know that where we choose, how we want to word it, what we want to choose that fund for.
To Dave's point about a campaign, I've asked some of my colleagues in public administration, have you ever dealt with this, and if so, how did it go? And that's one of the things that came out of those conversations, was that you should let the public know clearly what it is that you intend on spending the money on, some cost estimates for those projects, and how this is going to benefit them. We said 2 years ago that we would do a survey every 2 years. We did one in 2015. And of course, the public told us in that survey a number of things. One, keep our property taxes low. Two, please do something about the roads. And three, please do something about the big empty lot here in the corner. Those are the top 3 things they told us. So I would tell you, in my estimation, we've done everything we can to keep property taxes low. We've replaced or reconstructed a number of major roads in the community during the last couple of years, and we've now done something about the big empty lot in the corner. So we're going to continue that momentum. It might behoove us to consider rewriting that survey. We had some conversation about it last go round, and gearing that up as a tool to say, look, here's one of the mechanisms that we have to be able to handle these other things that you want us to do as this premier resort tax, is this incorporate that into the survey.
So if the consensus is we should proceed forward, what's the next step?
We would take a stab at a,
Resolution,
yeah.
bring it back to the board.
And try and get some information on,
We can put together some kind of,
Well, everybody will know by Friday, when the pulse comes out.
I would tell you
together
that,
some kind of marketing piece.
haven't seen other communities do similar initiatives. Certainly Jackson's gonna write whatever article Jackson writes, and that's gonna frame the public mindset about how this goes, going forward, but.
Or it's just gonna be informative and the public can frame how they like.
There's that.
What about a public hearing? No one said anything about a public hearing on this.
okay, so there- as part of
The ordinance
the
adoption.
ordinance, it would require a public hearing.
I would, so let's look at, we have until December 11th to do the resolution, in order to hit our timeline. If we're gonna work, to inform the public about what we're doing, let's look at considering doing the survey and that public information piece prior to resolution adoption, get that information back from the public. And then that gives us an opportunity to discuss over that, how does the public feel about this, going into it as opposed to the other way around.
We should also look at who or what entity or what group can help us through
Yes,
the
sir.
process
Yep.
prior to that,
Yes, sir.
and determine how best that happens.
So maybe talking to some of the administrators of these other municipalities that have it already, and what hurdles did they?
Yes, sir.
Right.
I have talked
Run into
to
it.
a number of treasurers or finance directors of the other municipalities. I only came across one marketing piece in that time, which was the city of Rhinelander. They had a fairly extensive piece of information, but otherwise the smaller municipalities didn't do a mass marketing campaign. They simply took the calls as they came into the office and explained exactly, I guess, what we're laying out here, as we have roads that need to be repaired, it's gonna cost us X amount of dollars, we're expecting to take this in. Do you want to do you want us to put this on your taxes, or do you want to try and have the tourism dollars pay for that? So there's two ways to go about it, I guess.
You're right. So, I
It
mean,
was very
it's
successful
all
with
part
other
of,
places.
that package or that information that you're gonna put together, whether we do it ourselves, or whether we have to go outside and get help. But yes, that's exactly the
Yeah.
way we get.
Okay, so is this what motion you want? A discussion regarding passing and adoption of a resolution proclaiming the village's intent to impose the Premier Resort Area tax. Consider a motion for action, if appropriate, shall be addressed at a future meeting of the village board. Prior to the time that that resolution is introduced, a public education/marketing campaign shall be conducted.
I'd like to kind of add on to that. I'd like to go find, really, I'd like to find a consultant that's been through this before and have some dialogue with them about a proposal to manage the marketing piece going ahead, putting that together for us.
I
We
really
can do
have
it
a
in-house if we want to do it in-house, but
dislike for the word marketing.
Yes, I
It
do
sounds
too.
like we're trying to sell
Okay.
somebody a bill of goods,
Yeah.
with public
Yeah.
information.
Right. How do we get the information?
Right.
out there?
So just say public education.
yes.
Okay, do you want to do the consultant or no?
Well, there's nothing wrong with you calling around and finding out what,
How's everybody else handle it? That's
How's
really what we're
everybody
going for.
else
How's everybody else
handle
I
handle
don't
it?
think you want to use consultant then, okay?
Okay,
um,
so just let it go at this and yeah.
and really what we're asking to do is have staff move forward with looking in the information, preparing a potential resolution for us to look at. We have a couple of months to kind of work through that and decide how, if we're going to do that, how we would accomplish that. So we don't need a motion tonight.
Right.
But
So we'll work to put together the informational pieces associated with this.
So take the motion away and say staff was just asked to investigate.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so staff was asked to investigate how other communities handle,
Implementation of Premier Resort tax.
Tasha, do you have information, different sizes of the communities that have implemented resort tax? And there's probably
Yeah.
some much larger, are there some smaller or similar sized to us?
Well, I guess the city of Eagle River would be about as close as we can get. City of Rhinelander is about 7,800 residents. Village of Stockholm is 66. So-
6,600 people?
66 residents.
People.
$8,000 a year in resort tax.
No, but Eagle River's a good comparison.
City of Eagle River
So
is
is Bayfield.
about
Bayfield and
1,400.
Ashland, if you've been up, up there,
Yeah.
those are similar type communities, they're, you can go up there and do whatever you want in the winter. In summer, they're very busy.
Yeah, the city of Eagle River takes in about 185,000 per year, and that's steadily growing, so.
Okay. Thank you. So, we good with that?
okay, so it was a consensus that a resolution for imposition of the Premier Resort tax shall be considered. and
Drafted.
Drafted.
Okay. Tax shall be drafted and reviewed at a future village board meeting.
And to me, part of the bigger, long-term picture, this is the next step in making Sister Bay that premier waterfront, place in Door County. So you've got to attract businesses, you put the businesses in, now you get the people, well, now you have to have good infrastructure, that they've got a place to park.
Continuing infrastructure, right.
Exactly, and so I'd get away from the tax idea, and it's just, this is the next piece in developing and maintaining.
Now
the
you're
village.
marketing.
Yeah, well, look, you.
Well,
I'm just kidding.
that's what you are doing, though, I mean, that's, yeah.
Well, for me, the primary difference is you're letting your tourists and visitors pay.
Share.
Pay the share.
Share.
Right.
And it's not everything just on the.
It's more of a consumption
On
tax.
the back of the property tax.
Right.
Okay, so it was a consensus that a resolution which authorizes imposition of the Premier Resort tax shall be drafted and reviewed at a future village board meeting. Staff was asked to conduct an investigation into how other communities handle the implementation of the Premier Resort tax and they will report their findings at a future meeting. Okay?
We should add to that, staff will generate a informational piece and present that at a future meeting. That's all part of that last sentence that you wrote.
Okay. All right, your promotional piece,
No,
Informational.
Information.
okay.
I think we think about marketing way too much on Sister Bay.
Yeah, dirty word.
Yeah.
Well, we're in the tourism industry, though.
I'm just thinking of I'm thinking of the people that try to come to me to buy advertising.
Oh,
It's dirty. You can quote me on that.
Chad.
Okay, all set?
Yep.
Number 8, discussion regarding a recommendation of the Parks Committee that the village facility user fee schedule be revised. Consider motion for action if appropriate.
No.
Starts on page 156.
At the beginning of the season, we got a request from an individual who expressed interest in utilizing the basketball courts for basketball lessons. The Parks Committee considered that request, and it was eventually the consensus that a fee schedule which pertains to all athletic instruction should be created. In an attempt to determine what an appropriate fee would be, I contacted a number of area municipalities, and the data that I obtained from them was included in the meeting packets. Several months ago, the village's facility use fee schedule was revised, and based upon comments which had made by a local wedding planner, the Waterfront Oversight Committee recommended that the fees for tenant events be increased considerably. We thought this would be a good idea and would generate quite a bit of money. But unfortunately, when people inquire about the fees that we charge for weddings or different tented events, we typically get a response of, it's that much, I'll get back to you, and then we never hear from them again. The Parks Committee recommended that the revised facility use fee schedule, which was included in the meeting packets, be approved. As you can see, that fee schedule depicts significant revisions to the tented event fee schedule and also contains more realistic cleaning charges. When we were going through this at the Parks Committee level, the guys said that the $100 didn't always cover all the charge-out rates, and so those were increased. If the fee schedule is approved, routine facility use requests for things like basketball or volleyball or tennis lessons would be just treated as an over-the-counter permit.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Discussion, questions? Look good.
Is it a bad thing that we haven't had people rent out the waterfront park? Because that's mostly.
Not in my mind.
I don't, I think that is for the public enjoyment, and I think when we put tenant events on there, we should get a lot of money for it because we're taking it from the public, and that's a big draw to Sister Bay. As much as that wedding might be a draw, the waterfront is a bigger draw.
So that's certainly a political question that can be answered. When we look at this at the staff level, the question we ask is, how was that facility used prior to the Awesome Beach being there, and then how was it used after the Awesome Beach being there? And the answer is, it's now being used much more by the public and much less for individual events, and our revenues have gone down as a result of that. So if we got back to the same level they were used at, I guess you guys can ask that question or answer that question.
Well, one of the things we did do is we restricted the number of events.
To, one per month. in
One
the
per
in-season,
month during
that's
July
it.
and August. So instead of something there every week
that's what you
as a
used to have.
possibility, which is what we used to have, we restricted it to one per month in July and one per month in August.
I think we spent a lot of time coming up with these, and we are very quickly talking about slashing them after less than one season of data to base this on. I think we should get more data before you just, how many committees talked about it at nauseum about
Well, but it
this,
did
and now
come-
it's, it didn't work.
I agree, but I think
From
part
the
of the,
consultant,
I think part of
and
the problem was in our doing this, working on that, we never had the mindset like, oh, there's revenue coming in, the village is counting on that, now it's all gone. Like, that was not information we had, wasn't information in any of my thoughts when we came up with this, because I think I would have searched to kind of ease them up or go up in a level to maintain that rather than just shoot the moon, which we did, which I agree. I mean, I agree with where we're at. But we didn't know, well, we're gonna be missing 20 grand. And that's,
And it is a significant revenue.
that's something we should have had as information before we made our decisions. Because I think we'd all made different decisions.
Yeah, Pat, another piece of it is when we went through the process of discussing what are we gonna sit them at, we had Kerry Baldwin come and talk to us. And Kerry made a presentation that said, if you will put up the tent, this is what you should set them at. And then subsequent to that discussion on the recommendation on what level we should set them at, Steve Mann spoke and said, we really don't have the staff resources to put up a tent. We talked quite at length about it, but then the tent came out. So we set up the price as if a tent was included, and then never came down because the tent wasn't included. So subsequent to that, the same consultants now come back to us, had conversations with Janelle and said, my God, I can't believe you guys are charging what you're charging for the rate. And by the way, she's the one that told us,
Yeah.
this is what you should be charging for it.
She was like, well, yeah, but no, there's no.
Well, I'll tell you, the 2 weddings that I know of down there last year played too loud music, well beyond what they should have. So I have no interest in more weddings downtown, or anything that produces noise, issues for our Parks Committee. I think we're underestimating. What I regularly hear is how much of a burden it is to schedule, clean up, and manage the activities of these activities. So if we lost 20,000 in revenue, what did we gain in labor efficiencies? We've been told we need more people in the office because we can't answer the phone because we've got all these scheduling issues. Now we don't have those scheduling issues. We should have freed up some labor hours that there should be a.
Well, unfortunately, we're still getting the calls.
Yeah, not
They're just saying,
quite.
I'll get
I
back
mean,
to you later.
I guess the direction you're headed in, Pat, I mean, certainly we're able to pick up a few man hours from cleaning up afterwards, but we also made an effort to handle that on the back end with the deposit. So here's how this worked in the past. The bride said, I don't care what the deposit is, this is my one and only day. $500, you guys can clean it up.
Right.
$500, I can play the music as loud as I want to. That's not what it is now. Now it's $3,500.
Okay.
Right? And so the bride, if they really want to blow it off for $3,500, okay, we'll go clean it up for
So the
$3,500.
people that were clearly in violation of the contract, did they
Old
forfeit?
contract, old terms, they booked this before we ever reset the rates. So we definitely learned in that process that $500 is not enough to compel a bride on her one and only day.
Did they lose their deposit?
Yep. But that didn't cover the expenses.
On
And
cleaning
so
up.
they then were billed for those additional
That's
expenses?
not how the contract was set
That's
up.
not of the contract.
Yeah, it's also why we brought it back to you guys to
So now
say
the
we can't believe
contract-
you're doing
now the
this
contract-
way.
Another reason not to lower things drastically. Again, the new fees have hardly been in use. You've had a couple of events. Have some more events and make sure we're not undercutting ourselves again.
Janelle, how many have you booked this year?
None.
We've had none, which is
And
why
we
it,
had- And we've had probably 15 to 20 inquiries about 2018, and they all said bye-bye.
That works for me. All we keep talking about is we don't have parking for the people now. We're too busy. We need more parks people. Why do we want to create more headache?
each year. You know what?
No, I mean, it's not about necessarily creating, it is a part of the community. Hey, who knows, I might get married again. I might want to have it there. Like, it's, to not have it available for people to want to do those things, I think wouldn't be right. Now,
Oh, it
I don't
is-
want to
it is
give it away,
available.
but I think we definitely, can price it appropriately. Limiting it to 2 events in July and August is already,
And
Pretty.
it's structured more for the collar.
yeah,
Wants to-
which is when we get the bike race and these other events that we want to attract. I mean, we do not want to deter these things. They can go elsewhere. Not only it will be loss of revenue for everything, but it's also part of the cachet of Sister Bay. They want to be here. Well, we want them here too,
Well, and what I hear from a lot of people that come is like, my dream was to get married in Sister Bay on the water, but they just can't afford it.
Now we're crushing dreams.
I think that 50% cut across the board is a big overreaction. Maybe we should do something, but let's do something measured then.
So,
Well, what was it before it went up?
ridiculously low. I paid it. It made me laugh. I said, really? So, you know, so you could,
So if you go, so we went from here to here, okay? Now we brought it to here. It's still probably 10 times what it used to be.
Oh, way more than that, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
First time I rented the village hall for
What,
Grace's birthday.
$25?
yeah, you asked me, like, oh, do you want it for another, you have to clean up by 2 o'clock, otherwise it's another $20. And I was, no, I'm not gonna worry about that, no.
Because he's that bride. One special.
Yeah, exactly.
Betty White.
I would be all in favor of cutting them and then building them up as demand, supply and demand. We overshot it, you know, obviously the market dictates it. Make it something where
Right,
it's
if we-
functioning
if
again, and then we can.
We start
improve those.
booking,
Yeah.
then okay, you're right.
July and August booked for next year, then automatically raise rate for
And
2019.
talking about the noise issues, it says right on here that they have to, all music has to cease by 9, or they lose their money, so.
Okay, then if we go with slashing the fee, how about if we keep the deposits the same? So that if somebody does want to blow it out, it's going to cost them. Then you're getting $3,000.
Well, you could always write a penalty in there as well for that, for those occurrences.
But how do you get that, though?
Exactly. If you've got
after
the
fact?
deposit,
Well,
now
you
you've
put
got
it-
it.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
You get a 5-minute grace period. 9:05,
Yeah.
there's amplified music, you
Yeah.
just lost your deposit.
I'd agree.
And then it should be, go there and you're unplugged. I'm sorry.
You
Okay?
get the phone calls.
I
The
mean, I
deal-
do. No, but
I called
Pat called me and I
It
agreed
was-
with him, right? I mean, it was
quoting the lyrics
Yeah.
to the song from my house.
It was loud.
That is wrong.
I mean, I have no problem keeping the deposit same.
Now, the only thing is, would you want that $3,000 to be deposited right away, or would we?
No, we'd handle it the way that we're handling it, as long as we can get it out of them, we can get it out of them. I'd really love to push this all over to credit card based, and booking, that's something we need to handle from the administrative end. Right now, we're doing it in an antiquated paper and pencil, we need to get a web-based form that they fill it out and they load their credit card information, away we go. We've tried to tie it in with, Marina Manager, but it just doesn't have the functionality to do it.
We can tie it in with the utility system.
Yeah.
We just have to take out the
Yeah,
additional fees associated with it.
or we just add them in, I mean, it just,
You should get a dedicated piece of software to do it instead of trying to make a piece of software that you might be able to torture into kind of doing it. They make
Oh, no,
specific.
it absolutely is designed for it. I mean, that was part of the draw to using that utility system,
Okay.
was that eventually we could expand it into the rest of the government services, but we thought, let's run it for utilities, make sure all the bugs are out, and then we'll expand it.
So they got one, is this
It's working
The
very well.
especially built for events?
Some of the problems that we have is our GL software, and I just talked to the VP of,
Are we way off base?
no, yeah, I guess we can tighten it up.
Okay, so you want this to say then, go back to $3,000 and pay the cash or check, which will be deposited in the trust account immediately goes away? And they
Just
can-
how we've handled it in the past, you know?
Okay,
So the,
Well, which is what though? So somebody gives you a piece of paper and when they break it and we can't, it bounces, we're in collections?
Why wouldn't you deposit it right away?
Yeah.
That's how they've handled it in the past.
Well, let's change that.
right,
Okay.
change that. Yeah.
Yeah.
so leave it, that check, cash or check will be deposited immediately, okay.
You may want to make a couple variables on that, because I agree with you completely, but like when it's a $25 check that somebody's given, a $25
The reason I'm-
deposit, it's a lot of extra book work.
Oh, sure, sure.
You know, so we might want to set a dollar amount on deposits in the amount of
Twofold.
100 or
The one that I
more.
wanted on is the wedding.
Yeah,
right,
the
to
wedding's
Pat's
for
point.
sure.
That's where we have the challenge.
Yeah.
The bike ride, I'm not really worried about it.
Yeah, yeah.
The guy who's gonna pick his guitar at the village hall, I'm not really worried about
Yeah.
it. The bike
Okay.
ride, yeah, I wanna get
Let-
the check and I wanna deposit it, but it's.
Deposited immediately or under staff
So
discretion.
here's how
Yeah.
this normally works. They call me and say, Zeke, here's what's coming, what do you wanna do? Go get the money, right? Let's work it out. This is gonna be a problem, or it might be a problem, let's get the money in hand and then we'll deal with it. Okay, fine. We make it work.
Anything over $500. Just deposit. That way we keep the overhead
Auditors
down,
happy.
but we've got coverage on the big things.
I agree.
Yeah, that works.
Because when it's a 25, I mean, I've rented the village hall a ton Janelle hands me my $25, whatever my deposit check is back because I clean so nicely.
Every time this has come up, I've always said we should have a minimum of $20 because
It's not
It-
worth touching it otherwise.
it's
I
not
know what
worth
people
dealing
say
with it.
about me, that's why. You should see my house.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's our motion?
Motion to approve the fee schedule as amended.
I was gonna let her read it.
Oh, sorry.
with a minimum of $20.
Okay, a motion was made by Bertle, seconded by Baker, that the village board accepts the recommendation of the Parks Committee and approves the revised facility use fee schedule, which was reviewed at this meeting on the condition that what?
Deposits over $500 were actually receipted.
And that security deposits remain the same.
At the same level?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, those are the revisions.
No, they're not. Right here, on all the security deposits, well, I'm sorry, 2 of the 4 security deposits you halved. What I'm suggesting is you keep all the security deposits.
For the tented events, I've got those written down, that's what I was asking you guys. I guess I wasn't asking in a way that you understood.
Okay.
I wanted to know if you want that to be $3,000.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
I got you.
Is that your motion?
I also, again, a minimum of $20 per transaction, whether that's multiple events or not, just so we're not dealing with checks for $5.
Janelle, what's the floor?
I don't think there is
I think,
anything
yeah, I
under.
think 25 is the minimum
So $5 an hour for the tennis courts and basketball courts?
there. Oh, yeah.
So if they want to pay for 4 hours at a time,
So
great.
we'll book them,
Just
But that's
$20
a fee
transaction.
versus a security deposit.
yeah.
Yeah,
That's
that's
what
true.
we just received.
Yeah, but I'm saying that the
To
two
Nate's
actual.
point, they need to book 4 slots at a time to,
I see what you're saying.
yeah. So we take care of it like that, Nate. The one that we're looking at there, those folks ultimately end up booking for like the season. They do it all in one fell swoop. I don't know if we have any one-offs, Janelle.
So, yeah, it would just be the tennis courts, so I'll say minimum
Okay.
of $20. Is that okay?
Great.
And then for the over-the-counter permits, it would be that same thing,
What are you talking about? Oh, for the
on
park?
page 161.
Yeah, same thing.
Would you like that read again, or are you okay?
I'm good.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried, thank you. Discussion on village bylaws, confirmation of President Lino's appointments. The only appointment we had tonight was Nate being appointed to the TID
Yep.
committee for the annual
Annual meeting.
meeting. Questions?
Who else is on that?
You? It would be the other members from the other taxing entities,
Okay.
from the TID district, and
And
Mr. Jackson.
yeah.
I'll need a motion.
So moved.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
congratulations.
Thank you.
Hey, you might get a lunch out of it.
That's what I miss
Reporting.
about DC. I always got a lunch. They always fed me.
Report on county activities from County Supervisor Dave Lino. I have a couple of things. Let's see if that's right. There is now a K-9 unit that has been approved for the sheriff's department. Quite a issue getting that. What happened was a crime prevention foundation was formed and became part of the community foundation. So donations could be made to the crime prevention foundation, and then that money would flow through the community foundation. So if the sheriff wanted to do something like the K-9 unit, or they wanted to expand the DARE program, or they wanted to do something additional within the area of policing, they could go back to the community foundation and say, could we have $10,000 from the crime prevention fund to do this program? Community Foundation would then agree or disagree. If they agreed, it would be sent to the Law Enforcement Committee at the county board. Law enforcement would then accept the donation and notate what it was for, and then it goes to the full county board
Oh, for crying out loud.
to be signed off. Well, let me explain why. I'm glad you heard this all day today. There are a number of people in the community who feel that that is dark money and may be used to fund all sorts of things that don't have proper oversight by the county or the law enforcement community. There were accusations made, for instance, that it had something to do with the sheriff's reelection campaign fund for next year, and that he could draw funds from that, okay? And let me assure you that's not the case, and Corporation Counsel says that's not the case, and it does follow all of the necessary requirements for county government and to do that sort of thing. There's something almost identical to that, the Friends of the Park donate money through the Parks program all the time to do things, to build things in the parks or to add things in the park. And again, the question becomes, well, where do you know the money is coming from? So if Pat donates money to the Friends of the Park, okay, when the Friends comes and say, I have $5,000 to build a new bridge at Sugar Creek Park, they don't have to give a list of donors, and that's what the objection is. Nobody knows where the money's coming from. Who cares? Okay?
Take the money.
If somebody donated, that person's not saying it has to go to this, it's being donated to the fund, and now the sheriff or the parks, whoever, can draw on that fund with approval of their oversight committee and ultimate approval of the county board to make that happen. So, anyway, we're getting a canine unit. And the only thing that the county will be responsible for, so it'll be 100% funded by the foundation. They have more than enough money to fund it already in donations. However, the county will be responsible for, I think it's $2,255 a year. There's a $35 stipend that has to be paid to the dog handler for care of the dog in his or her private home. And it has to be paid as part of his or her salary under state law. So that's the stipend and taxes and FICA and everything else that would have to be paid on that care for the animal in the individual's home. So, the other thing that was passed today that could work for Sister Bay and Liberty Grove and surrounding communities is we also passed a property assessed clean energy financing called PACE. The PACE program is kind of nationwide. It's fairly new in Wisconsin. It used to be only in Milwaukee, the city of Milwaukee, and it was expanded to cover all the counties in Wisconsin, but the counties have to sign up for it. They have to pass a resolution and pass an ordinance, okay, to make it happen. That was accomplished today. And then the county has a representative now on the board of directors of PACE. So what happened is a quasi-intergovernmental group was formed. There's now 19 other counties that are in the PACE program. And what it allows you to do, or how it works, is if you own a business now in Door County and you'd like to upgrade your HVAC systems or your water systems or whatever to save energy, save money, you can apply to PACE. They will come in and do, for instance, an energy audit if it had to do with electricity. And they come and say, well, if you put a new air conditioning system in, and a new freezer system in, or a new HVAC plant in, you could save, $40,000 over the life of the unit. What they will do is, unlike most business loans that you can only get for 5 to 7 years, okay, you can get financing to them through banks, local banks, at the life expectancy of the unit. So if the boiler lasts 30 years, you can borrow the money for the 30-year period of time. And the idea is that the money is paid back from the savings of the installation of the unit. And so they will do all of that study, and they will verify that in fact that's the case, okay? And it's assigned to the property. There's a lien put on the property then as a result. If there was a default, what happens is the county would put the annual money that's paid on the property tax bill. So that's how the lender gets paid back. So that's what you have to agree to do. If there's just outright default, the county is not liable. The county doesn't end up paying anything. The lender ultimately ends up out of money. But it's a kind of a guarantee to the lender that if the person were to default or get behind in payments, there's another avenue. And so that as a result of collecting, so as a result, the lenders are more agreeable to the long-term financing, okay? And the projects range anywhere from $100,000 up to $20 million that have been put in place. There's over 1,000 of these currently in place around the United States. There's about 20 of them in place in the state of Wisconsin. But now it's being expanded into outside of Milwaukee and now the rest of the state. As I mentioned, there's 19 counties now, including Door, that have approved this. So it's available to property and business owners. They're also looking at packaging smaller loans. So to meet the $100,000 threshold, maybe there's 4 businesses that they get together. And, you know, I need a new furnace, Denise needs new coolers, Pat needs a new boiler to come up to the $100,000, and it's packaged together like that.
So it's a $100,000 minimum?
At the moment, right. As they get more lenders on board, they believe they'll be able to bring it down. They recognize something needs to be done in the small business area, and that's why they're looking at how they can package them. But they're also, as they get more business into this packaging, then the lenders are more open to doing more of this type of thing.
What is it called again?
PACE.
No, but I mean, what does that stand for, sorry?
Property assessed clean energy.
Yes, property assessed clean energy financing. And it can be, it's a wide, even though you think energy, you know, gas, oil, electric, it can be a wide range of things. It can be water systems, it can be solar, it can be wind, it can be, there's any number of things that qualify under it. So don't let the word energy.
And that's through the county?
Because the county approved the program, it's now available in Door County. It's actually operated by this PACE group in Wisconsin.
So it's a
And that's who would be contacted. And there's no requirement, you don't have to use a certain contractor, you don't have to use a certain bank. They'll provide you with contractors that are willing to work with the program, but if you want to use local contractors, you're free to do that. They'll work with anybody to do it. Their primary thing is getting the financing and working with the banks to get it in place.
For private individuals too, or just business owners?
At the moment, it's just business owners. Once they hope at some point in time to get it into a domestic housing.
Yeah, $100,000.
Like right now, it could be multifamily units. It can be, you know, hotels, condos, that sort of thing, but individual family homes at the moment, no. So that was a good thing.
It is amazing. I think 2 years ago, we took out all of our 8-foot fluorescent bulbs and put in LED lighting. Actually have less lighting than what I did before. And it didn't even take a year to regain that money. It was unbelievable. I would say it was about 7 or 8 months.
I did my canopy a couple of years ago, and I did all the coolers inside. Amazing. And then in May, Sub Express came out with a program, and they changed my ovens. So I had these 2 conveyor ovens for my subs and pizzas, and now it went to a double stack internal units, so there's no conveyor, right? And it went from $26 a day per unit to $350 a day for 2.
Wow.
Yeah. It's like,
Yeah. Sign me up.
and there's more throughput, right? So it's like, yeah, sign me up. So, yeah, it's amazing what they can do with it, yeah. So,
Mr. Chairman?
yes.
You recall they said that in this entire program so far, there have been no defaults.
Oh, yes, that's right. Out of the 1,000+ loans that have been made, up to this point in time, there's never been a default yet.
Oh.
Well, if it's paying for itself, and that's what they're using on the payback, just kind of,
Yeah, that's great.
thank you, Wiley. The other thing I want to mention is the recount reform. If you recall the last presidential election in Wisconsin, there was a recount that was called for by a non-presidential, presidential candidate asked for it, but it was outside the norm of what typically you would automatically do a recount. So in the state of Wisconsin, I believe if you're within 1/2 of 1% of the final total, it's an automatic recount at no charge. If it's higher than that, but you're within 1%, the candidate who lost can ask for a recount, but has to pay a portion of it. Okay? What happened this last year?
Third party, wasn't it?
There was a third-party candidate who was way outside that, got less than 2 or 3% of the vote total, okay? And required a count. And the way that this law was set up, they didn't have to pay for all of it, they only had to pay a small portion of it. But all 72 counties, county clerks had to take the time. Each municipality had to take time to do the recount, and it cost, millions of dollars within the state of Wisconsin that was not reimbursed by anybody for somebody who was impossible to win on the recount, would not have changed any of the results. So there is a legislative bill that was introduced that if you're within that 1/2 of 1%, okay, you can still get the recount at no charge. If you're above that 0.5%, but you're within the 1%, and it's possible that it could change the outcome, you can ask for the recount. But that's the only way you can get a recount under the proposed legislation. So the county looked at that, agreed to support that resolution that, yes, we should believe that's the way that the recounts should be done in the state of Wisconsin. So we approved that resolution to send to the state legislature today. And that's pretty much the hot topics. Any questions? Anything else going on? Anybody need a break before we do committee reports? I mean, there's 2 more items yet, but. No?
Yeah, it's okay.
Review of the financial statements, consideration of a motion to approve the monthly bills.
So moved.
Second?
Page 163, did you look into the planting of the trees?
I've asked the question, I don't know if you get a chance to pull it up.
I did, and that would be, it covered essentially the materials, the purchase of the trees, not the labor to install the trees.
Okay. So that was just a,
On 163, I know there's been various costs along the way with fireworks. We've got more here as well as a shooter for like $2,300.
Yep. So we had I don't know if this made it here for full discussion or not, we had an anonymous donation of $5,000. So we took those funds and applied them to various bits and pieces of doing the shoot.
And there's going to be a fireworks on July 8th.
Yeah.
Yep, that's right.
So that's part of what this is.
So all the, what says, like Bell Pyrotechnics, it's 2,000, 2,800, 2,000. These are expenses though, right? Not.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's a revenue offsetting these expenses. I guess that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
So there's a budgeted sum for fireworks, and then there's an unbudgeted sum for fireworks, which is the 5,000 for that.
Okay.
So all in, the total of all that should be right at the combination of those two.
Okay, and so on the fireworks that are in here, you've purchased the fireworks for the July Festival, for Marina Fest, and for New Year's.
Right, we did them all as one.
It's all been
go
purchased
up front,
already
So we wouldn't have,
for this year.
but we'd cut down the shipping cost doing it that way.
Okay. I'm thinking in past, we talked about like the idea of like New Year's, I think you spent $1,500 or $2,000. We've got 4,000 listed here, plus a $2,800 launcher, plus there was hundreds and hundreds and several other things. What does New Year's Eve fireworks really cost us? I mean, is this for last year and this year, or this is all this year?
No, so this is everything for 3 events.
Okay, but you see what I'm saying? You got
Fireworks
2,000,
for New Year's Eve is
2,800.
listed twice.
Yeah, it may say New Year's Eve on there, don't get caught up with that, or Marina Fest, don't get caught up with that. It should just be an aggregate sum for all of it. And actually, as I'm looking at this, I'd tell you what one of them is there was a check that was issued. So I had to physically have the check in hand down there, so we did a check down there, they then reissued a check. So there's a duplication of dollars there if you look at those sums. I got a call the day that I was headed down there, and he said, no, we got the check. So then I brought that check back with me and it got voided out. But you're still seeing it here as an expense item on that.
So which one is that?
One of the New Year's Eve.
One of the 2,000 and the,
The 217Bs?
is it the 6-1?
Okay, so we're really not spending 4,000 plus a portion
No,
of that launcher on New Year's Eve, that's my
Big
hope.
chunk that's voided out here.
Okay,
$4,834.50?
okay.
I'd I'd have to go back and look, because I don't remember what it was, but I remember that we basically had a duplication of all of them. It's also
Well, I would
easy to start to
imagine the
double
one with the B behind it is the duplicate that was,
The B, yeah, that makes sense, so the 2020-34.
The B would be the one that we had to cut that day.
Okay.
Okay, so those came back, so it was 2,000 for New Year's Eve, 2,800 for Marina Fest.
And 3345 for July Fest.
Sorry about that.
Do you envision any more significant expenses this year for
No.
fireworks, launching,
No, everything should be done at this point.
clothing, fees, certifications, truck charges, shipping?
No, sir.
I did ask
Okay.
today when I was reviewing the bills, and when Zeke said that we're done with fireworks and everything, I said, okay, now tally everything up, and I
So
want to
that's
print
Tasha
out.
to do a tally on it.
That's been a note on my computer for a couple of months,
Yeah.
like Kat asked a couple of months ago, and I remembered, so.
So the other piece of this, just to keep in mind, when you look at the, at that top section of Bell Pyrotechnics, the 2000, the 2834, and the 3345, those are the shell expenses. So everything else is a one-time shot, so we needed the ignition system, we needed the tubes, and all that just gets reused over and over and over. So when we want to duplicate those shows in the future, that's, those shell expenses is what we have to.
And if you replace a tube, it's not as much as it was the first time, because you're just physically replacing the tube, correct?
Yeah, but you don't really have to physically replace tubes. I mean, you can use those things for a long, long time, unless we have a blowout, right, which is then like, ooh, hey, the boat looks like it exploded, everybody.
We've had that.
Yeah, it's not
Yeah,
fun.
different animal if that's the conversation.
Okay, what else?
There's, on page 164, Door County Highway Department street maintenance for almost $6,200. I don't really care what that was for. It's just gonna lead me into my next question. When they repaved Mill, you know, Maple, yeah, I live on Maple. The road is much higher than what it was before. A lot of driveways, including my own now, you know, the water comes in, although, and I did talk to Mike Skell about this, with all the rain that we did get, it did not puddle, so I was flabbergasted at that. But why are our manholes, and this is no offense to you, because I half know the answer, why are our manholes so low that it's bumpy?
Mike?
They're, if you measure them, the biggest one's about 1.25 inches long. If you put them flush, the first winter, the snowplow's gonna hit them, you're gonna bust the snowplow, you're gonna bust all your casings. And there's only one manhole on Maple that's in the driving lane, unless you're steering for it.
Okay.
But that's why they're kept low. You can't, if you have them flush, it'll be a bigger problem than cost.
A couple of people had just said they seemed lower than normal.
So they were probably lower than what they were.
Yeah, 'cause
Yeah.
And they put double courses down on.
It's two lifts.
Two lifts of,
Yep.
but
Yeah.
they were all
Did
The other
we
one-
anticipate that the road was gonna be so much higher and
Yes.
everybody's
Well-
driveway is going to,
Anticipates a broad question, so when they do a pulverization and resurfacing like that, that's what happens, because ultimately what happens is all the asphalt that's there, they run a grinder on top of it, and it just destroys the existing double lift of asphalt, blends it in with the underlying gravel. So you've already got that elevation, they then compact that, which gets it basically still higher than what it was when it was improved asphalt, and they come lay 4 inches of asphalt on top of
I
that.
know, I mean, my driveway used to be flush, pretty close to flush.
Yeah, so it's also why they do.
So if the rain is not gonna be an issue, I'm also now concerned about what is it gonna be like this winter? And do I just deal with it? Do all of us just deal with what the county did?
That's typically how that happens.
It's an economic thing.
Yeah.
If they have to haul all that blacktop
It's
away,
like
the
another
road costs.
25 grand hauling to do that. And by the way, you get a much better road now with that asphalt underneath it. I mean, the road, but they should be able to go a longer cycle on that road now that all of that material is there than the first run of roads. So the idea when doing highway construction is we want that material there and we want to continue to build a good road base.
Well, next time they do this though, are they gonna haul it all the way or is the road even gonna get higher?
It'll get higher and you'll be dead and gone.
I think I have more than 25 years left in me, Z.
If they have to come back there, what they'll end up doing is chip sealing it. That'll be the next go-round, assuming that the county's doing chip sealing, so that'll be about the 20, 25-year mark. The next next reconstruction there, I'm gonna guess it's gonna be 50 or 60 years out. It's kind of the lifespan of those.
Denise might be able to handle that.
Well, yeah.
She'll be living in her backyard though.
If you think about Woodcrest, that was last done in 1958, and Bluffside 1962. So if you think about how long those roads going, by the way, we didn't chip
Yeah, but
seal them.
Bluffside's not a county road.
Good point. You've got a lot more traffic running on it to deteriorate it, point taken.
Okay. So just grin and bear it, okay?
I'll be happy to ask the question of our highway commissioner.
Well, I got his phone number from Janelle.
Okay.
I just couldn't come up with the wording to talk to him about it.
So page 164, we still have Polachek on unemployment.
I was gonna ask that same thing. How much longer are we on
Every
board?
business owner I run into says we can't get good people. What is wrong with this poor man?
You've got Nicole Crowell on there also, and Tiffany and Neil. We've got three that are drawing on us right now. I don't know when Polachek drops off.
December?
You know when Crowell comes off? June next year?
Not this December, it's the
Yeah.
following December, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Of 18.
It's, yeah, it's a really long time. When you look at the final date, it's a long time.
The only thing I'll say is unemployment operates very differently than what I'm accustomed to in the state of Wisconsin. Like, people basically have a pulse and continue to draw unemployment.
And does somebody check that these people really aren't working but are attempting to secure employment?
DPW handles all those things.
Yeah.
Don't get me going on unemployment.
Dave's got some horror stories.
I don't know if there's any way to challenge them on that. I mean, to check up on it. There's not really a lot we can do, I don't think.
There isn't.
I mean, yeah, but Department of Workforce Development would know if they have a job, because as an employer, you have to do a new hire reporting with their social security and all their other information, so that would be automatically triggered. I think, well, I'm not gonna say what I think publicly.
Okay. At some point, it might be worth hiring an investigator to follow these people around and see what exactly they're doing. I just seriously, I'd personally get bored after 6 months of sitting around doing nothing. I mean, Polachek's been on all year. It's the end of June.
And it's a pretty good job market, right?
Right. Oh, so I'm told we can't find good labor. Get me a warm body, I'll hire him.
He's got a pulse.
Or maybe
Wouldn't
we
hire a
work.
guy that's still collecting unemployment for this.
It might be cheaper for us. It might be cheaper for us to find somebody to help him get a job.
I don't think he wants a job.
That's
We
not
did
our
have some
problem.
problems for a
Take a
while.
effing job. Get
As
off of
long
our.
as he meets the unemployment compensation requirements, he can stay on unemployment.
I mean, I knew.
He does have to look for a job to continue to get benefits.
He's required to give weekly or
He has to
bi-weekly
fax them
reports
in or
in,
whatever,
right.
every week.
And I think we talked about this when we let him go, that this could get expensive.
Next.
Page, just a comment, on page 165 where we were paying feral gas for propane or whatever. I know that the village does a contract every year or whatever, but do we fill up everything that we own in July when the price is absolutely the lowest?
We have in the past, I don't know if we've done that
I
this
don't know
year.
the answer to that. I guess
Yeah.
I'd have to check with facilities.
And
I think
prices-
it's worth checking into, because I do that also with my house. I always get a fill up. It's not part of my contract, because the contract is only basically for the winter, but
I'm fairly certain ours is on keep filled.
12 months?
That was the last time I looked at our documentation back when we had that hard
Okay,
winter, it was
then
on keep filled.
Maybe yours is different.
Okay, what else?
Guess that's it.
Everybody else good? We have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Report by the village administrator on village activities and projects.
Reports are included in your packets. If you have any questions, we'll be more than glad to answer them.
I brought this up at Plan Commission as Zeke was reporting about the blasting on the old school site. And he was able to catch them actually more by coincidence than anything before they started blasting. I do not know how we get these people to understand that we have an ordinance that has to be followed.
Well, it's state law too. How do they get around
So
avoiding state law?
the state requirement is fairly minimal for noticing for blasting. Basically, what we get is a mailed notice. They don't call us or anything. They send us a mailed notice. One comes to me and one comes to Chris Eck that says blasting is going to happen about this day. I did not say this earlier. With Harborview, one of the challenges that happened is our engineering firm, Robert E. Lee, had a conversation with Paschke Blasting and said, you need to go ahead and get moving on the blasting. So that's that conversation in the background. Meanwhile, I'll show up on the scene, and the excuse I get from Paschke is, well, your engineer told us to go ahead and blast. And I went, whoa, whoa, whoa. They may have told you, you need to go ahead and get on the stick to do things. That doesn't absolve you from your responsibility to notice people. You always have to notice people. So just FYI, they don't seem to like to notice, but we continue to hold them accountable for it.
Well, and I think in the new rewriting of the code, I think penalties are going to start being severe for non-notification.
I think that goes for all contractors about notification of work. You know, we run into this from time to time where somebody will come into town to do asphalt work, or somebody will come into town to do plumbing, or somebody will come into town to do general contracting, and for many of them, their first go is, well, I'll just go and start working and we'll see what happens. Then Mike's out riding to check a valve somewhere and he sees somebody working, and he comes in and talks to me about it. Or you know, Joe Fellhopper's out riding somewhere and sees somebody and says, hey, did you see so-and-so's doing a whatever, and they got a big dumpster outside, and we're playing catch-up on it. But, you know, if we consider some kind of penalty, it's not a bad idea. And then after the fact, we can hit them with something more than what we already can.
Any questions on anything in the reports?
Nope.
The marina, are we talking about all of them?
Yes.
Is it possible that I can get a copy of the welcome packet that the marina put out?
Sure.
As long as you're talking about Marina, did you get my email about scheduling a meeting?
I know I've got an email from you that's on my desk, but I'm catching up.
Okay.
And just out of curiosity, what was the contest down at the marina? On Facebook.
What was the contest? I think you won the wine and cheese board with a bag. I'm trying to think of what was the contest.
It seems like we had a basket of North County stuff.
Wasn't it
That's
just
all
a
I'll
like
say
and
about it.
share, like comment
Could,
and
it
share?
could be right. That she
Okay.
put a couple of social media blasts out and said whoever shares the most will
Oh,
win something.
okay.
Yeah,
Cute idea.
yeah.
Facilities managers report, the pontoon boat is very close to being ready for Freedom Fest. What is Freedom Fest?
That's the July 8th.
Oh, okay.
Fireworks.
And what pontoon, do we own a pontoon boat now?
Fuzzy let us use a pontoon boat. Originally, it was gonna be a swim raft, but
Right,
it
but it was
probably will
bad.
float for like 3 hours maybe. We put some Flex Seal on it to
Oh,
hold it together. So we needed to float long enough to launch fireworks off of, and after that,
What about the raft and everything that we approved for purchase?
that's a different animal. We don't wanna launch fireworks off the raft.
No,
Okay.
but it's July 4th
Right, I thought
weekend,
we
where's the
were
raft?
talking about putting a raft out
Yep.
for swimmers.
So the raft is gonna order through Port Pier. I asked Joe to check up on it. Joe's supposed to check up on it and get back to me.
yeah,
Yeah,
well,
we
I
asked
thought it
the
was,
same question, like, hey, thought the raft was supposed to be coming, and Port Pier had to order it. We'll double check
I
that.
thought I read that somewhere in the minutes though, that.
And the trolley starts
Yeah, it was
this weekend?
here. I was told that the raft won't be ready until sometime in July, and I will keep on them about getting it ASAP in his facilities report. So there's some kind of issue.
Okay. Any other questions on the reports? If not, we'll go to discussion regarding matters to be placed on the future agenda referred to a committee, official, or employee.
I've got the Dippy's development agreement over, reflecting the stuff on the Yeti and temporary occupancy extended until July the board meeting. We're gonna work with, our folks to develop a educational piece, on the premier resort tax and, do another draft of the survey questions to bring back to consideration. I don't know if that goes to finance or here to the full board, or where you guys want it to go. It's a question, I don't know.
I thought part of what you were gonna find out is how do you do it from somebody that's done it and get information and,
Yes, sir. I mean, from the committee standpoint, who's gonna review all that stuff?
well, until we know what it is.
Okay. We'll do that too. All right, welcome package to Denise from the marina, and continue to beat the people up by the raft at the beach.
And the wetland delineation to the parking committee?
I have that on my hand from you earlier.
Well, I thought we were waiting for a parking drawing from Robert E. Lee.
So I'm waiting for you to schedule a meeting,
For who?
parking.
You have it? You have the drawing?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh.
Next Tuesday.
We can talk about
I
that
work
under
the
parking.
next 2 weeks with no days off.
We gotta get it done.
Okay, moving into committee reports. Administrative has not met. Admin and comp oversight has not met. Coastal byways.
Coastal Byways met on June 14th. Nancy Goss presented information on the Greater Escarpment Organization of Door County. They purchased a building in Ellison Bay, and they're going to put a interactive education center there. And they requested a letter of recommendation, support from the Coastal Byways, which we gave them. We had DOT Representative Matt Hafs, and Project Manager Tillman. We also had Becky and some other people from the County Planning Commission come and try to help us understand the signage that was allowed and not allowed on the county roads or state highways. Basically, it was addressing some issues for banners and stuff like that. And basically, you need to fill out applications for them, but there was a lot of, we'll get back to you on stuff. So a lot of questions, not a lot of answers, but. And then there's a letter floating around from the rock fences, asking for support to keep them. They will not be taken down. So a letter was sent to Sister Bay, but I don't think inside the village of Sister Bay there are any rock fences, unless,
There is on 57, I thought.
well, I don't know if it's in the village of
It's
Sister.
in the village.
The one I'm thinking about is between here and Bailey's. Jeremy Asher was talking about it and leaving them.
What about the cemetery? Little Sister Cemetery, is Little Sister Cemetery in the village of Sister Bay? Because supposedly there's a rock fence there.
The
Anyway.
road
Technically, no.
is, but not the cemetery.
Okay, that's what I thought. So I don't think, I said, yeah, I'm sure somebody would support you, but I don't really think there's any stone fences in the village of Sister Bay that would fall under this, but,
Why would that be part of DOT's project anyway? It's outside the right of way.
yeah. They decided they weren't gonna take them down. But
Okay.
but what the Coastal Byways is looking for is just individuals that would maybe help, keep these and clean them up and preserve them. So, and I think that letter went to the Historical Society, but anyway, that's about it.
DCECD.
They're advertising the economic development manager's position, formerly staffed by Sam Perlman. Caleb's relaunching relaunching committees and doing a bit of a brainstorming session in the next month, particularly the workforce housing.
We're, Caleb, Brian, Heath, myself, and a couple of developers are supposed to, talk with some folks from the Dells and see how they did. They've got some dormitory style housing down there, and find out if we can import that kind of project in the county. So, ongoing also.
Economic development, that's not that. Finance.
Results you saw tonight.
Fire.
Janelle handed out the minutes of the June 8th meeting as we came in. Any question? Straightforward meeting.
She gave us.
Fire district exploratory.
Has not met.
Historical society.
Historical Society met on June 1st. We had gotten a dispersal of a Peg Foster, a bequest for $20,000. And there was discussion on where we're gonna put that. Spring rummage sale brought about $1,500 in, not bad. We lost our treasurer, Mr. Kane. He resigned. Talk on the farm market, the garden walk, the ice cream social, upcoming events. Little discussion on the building that they're talking about putting up out there. That was about it, and that's about it.
Can the request from Peg Foster
Yep.
be mentioned, be publicized?
Well, it's in public, yeah, it
Okay,
was in
and
public
it's for a
meeting.
state.
Yes.
Okay.
Library building.
You had the minutes in your package from the May meeting. We did have a meeting in June. Gardening was complete. That was $6,500. It's a lot of money, but that's all in the budget. They did all the mulching. That's it for the library.
Whatever
Is that the right-
became of that gentleman that was here talking about the pond in the gardens back there overflowing or something?
They were
Yeah.
concerned, yeah, they were concerned that somebody would fall into or something, but
Yeah.
they took care of that.
I think they
area.
cleaned out the
Yeah,
Overflow.
the overflow.
Yeah, okay.
yeah.
Have they talked more about the library parking only sign?
Oh, you know what, I'm asking,
'Cause
they
they-
decided they weren't gonna do it.
Good.
They're gonna monitor the parking, and if they find cars in there that are there all day or something, that they might put a note on the car. There's a sign that was on the corner, and I don't know if it was one of those slat signs, but there should be a sign that designates where the library
It
is.
says library, there, it was a slat sign.
Okay, so that probably can't go back up,
No,
but
we're
wouldn't-
going to put that out on a temporary basis on the corner.
okay, but wouldn't that be like a government building or something where we would get one of those green metal signs? I mean, isn't there a highway sign that would be, should be put up?
Or are you asking for delineating the library that particular direction, like off
Any
premise or on
sign,
premise?
any sign that says library.
That would,
I mean, there's
typically, that would have
nothing.
been part of our wayfinding signage.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I
That's
keep
been-
telling them, but,
it's been
so
delayed.
So
they're
we-
coming?
Well, we actually just got another memo from DOT for 157 that said this is in the right of way, it's in conflict, you have to take it down. So me and Alec were riding by one night and went and yanked it down and put it behind the building, but we're still gonna put the one up that we talked about at Parks at this intersection. We gotta get it cleaned up and out there.
So there, until we do the wayfinding signage, there will be no library designation?
We are working to get a temporary one back in place.
Okay, great.
Marina Fest.
Need you to make an appointment to Marina Fest.
So at the last meeting, we had this discussion, but it was after the fact, wasn't it?
Yep.
We are looking for somebody to volunteer for Marina Fest.
From the board?
Yes.
Wasn't people on the
We-
marina?
No, we had Pat's got some conflicts going on with things, and so we had talked about who else might be able to do that. We effectively have 2 or 3 meetings a year. It's largely, self-piloted, but there should be some guidance from this body, the representation of that committee to say, yeah, we want to do that, or no, we don't want to do that. The effective setup is that it's the nonprofits on day one, the for-profits and the nonprofits that want to participate on day number 2. Most of the bands and fireworks are day number 1. Tim and Tim's Toys are kind of the entertainment on day number 2.
Could always ask Sharon,
It's got to be a trustee.
according to the bylaws.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I think it's,
Yeah, that slot, yes.
yeah, hang on. Let me double check that. One Parks Committee rep, one citizen. Parks Committee rep position is vacant. It doesn't say trustee. Yeah, it could be Sharon.
To be sure.
I'm not saying that she'll do
No,
it, I'm just
right,
throwing it out there.
Yeah, but she'd be energetic and good at it.
She ran it for what, 20 years?
Yeah.
If you ask her, she'd respond better.
She
than
sounds
we
more
would.
qualified than any of us.
Sounds like Chad wants to do it.
No, Chad's just really busy. I mean, Chad's busy this summer. Marina Fest is like,
One meeting, Chad.
yeah, well, I'll meet in February in it, sure. I know it's gonna be me selling rots on that Saturday.
Yeah.
Dirty looks from my staff that
Okay,
weekend.
so how about this? How about if, let me talk with Patrick a little bit, and then I'll contact Sharon and
See
we
what
go.
shakes out.
Yeah.
Just in case anybody asks, it's the same thing we talked about last meeting. We've contacted a number of the nonprofits who had questions about what's going on and what are we doing.
Parks. It's right there, good.
Took action on that tonight with fees.
Personnel,
Has enough.
plan.
Took action on all that tonight.
So I'm going back.
Just
Oh, go ahead.
an FYI, next month, Plan Commission is going to be talking seriously about workforce housing or housing in general. And we are also, depending upon how much time staff has, we are going to chop up the zoning code into zoning districts. So all the information for everything that pertains to B1 will be in there. No more looking through multiple chapters and obscure places to find out what's allowed in all of the districts. They may end up getting compiled by residential and commercial and a couple of odd ones or whatever. We'll see how that goes as we work through it. But I would like us to be done with that project come spring of next year. And we talked about that the other times that we had rewritten the code, that we would meet every 2 weeks in the winter or whatever, just focus on that and move forward.
Okay, good. I don't know whether to bring this up under plan and signs, or zoning administrator, or your thing. I just remember, I've had a couple of people call me and ask me why we're advertising for the beer company up on top of the hill by the visitor center.
No idea what you're talking about.
There's a banner up
The
there.
banners we got, they were free.
Oh, from,
What beer company?
Flanagan did them
Yeah.
So the banners for the Freedom
for SBAA.
SBAA,
Yeah.
okay, it's got 2 big bottles of Budweiser on it.
Oh, that's not good.
No.
That's the only way that we could get.
That's how you get the free signs.
Right, that's how you get the free
And
signs.
we're trying to raise money for gyms, so any.
Oh, it's
money we
just
can
for
save-
that?
Yeah.
Oh,
What do you want us to do?
leave them.
I didn't see that. I saw
I
the
didn't
sign, I
even
did not
see
see
the
the
sign.
beer.
I didn't see the beer
notice
bottle.
that.
I didn't either.
I had them make them as small as they possibly could,
Okay,
because I figured that would be an issue.
yeah.
Good guess.
What is the sign for?
It's at the visitor center.
July 8th,
Oh.
Freedom.
Okay.
Just for the freedom thing.
All right,
That's
so
all-
here we're
that's
talking
all
about
it's
signs all the time. So now you're gonna let Budweiser advertise because they're gonna give you a free sign. So every company comes along, gonna give us a free sign, we can put all their company advertising up there,
Yeah.
right?
And that's not allowed. I mean, I have the copy of the sign code, it's not allowed.
Right.
I mean, it's so specific.
I understand why, I understand the goodness of it and all that kind of stuff, okay? So now, what's to prevent any company wanting to sponsor something, putting their logos on our banners?
Well, that's a good thing, but when we get all these temporary ones, like for Fall Fest and for festivals, like us as a private business is, and if we can't do it, we can't do it, but would it, you mean for that as
Two
well?
pieces to this, guys. So
Yeah,
piece
that's-
number one is it's the village and we can do what we want to on our own property. That is different than our role as a regulator, in which case our hands are much more tightly tied. So we cannot regulate content. So in Chad's case, when he puts up the temporary
Right.
sign that has the
Right, that's not what we're
Budweiser,
talking about.
whatever,
Can't,
that's you. As long
That's
as it meets
fine.
the size requirement, have at it. In our case, we can certainly make a determination about whether or not we want to affiliate ourselves with an alcoholic beverage company or cigarette company or anybody else. So,
Are we going to be selling beer?
Yes.
Well-
The Lions are. That's how that all came about.
Dave, I see exactly what you're saying, but if they're, I guess Flanagan's always been so generous for anybody and wanting to sign for anything, and I know it's advertising
I
for them,
understand.
but I don't know if it ever sells them another Budweiser. I'm fine with it, but I see where you're coming from.
And I understand. I guess we were just trying to raise as much money as we could for Jim.
I know, I'm raising the issue, there's been a couple of complaints called into me.
you can tell them that Zeke's colorblind and he didn't see the beer bottles.
Okay.
I seriously did
So,
not see the beer
so
bottles.
what if one of them was a competing beer company that said, well, how come I wasn't asked?
If they want to give us a sign, we'll put it up.
But I think that's
I'll
a
find a
problem,
place
that's
for
exactly
it.
the problem you're
That's
talking
exactly
about.
the problem I'm talking
That is-
about.
That's what we're running into.
Right. So,
We can pull them down.
something to think about, okay?
Yes, sir.
So does that mean because of this particular event, they're just gonna ride? Is that what we're saying?
Well, I think that the zoning administrator is gonna take it under advisement and figure it out. If he takes till August 1st to figure it out,
Okay, so be it, all right.
so be it.
Gotcha.
All right.
Thank you.
SBA,
Package, was in the, minutes were in the package, the packet, oh boy. We lost Ron Kane, that's the big news. And everything else was in there, and if you have any questions,
You guys know about the new
Who's the new hire?
coordinator?
yeah, that
Her
would
name is Louise Housen. I got the bio they sent to her, she's a career professional with hands-on knowledge and expertise in project management, business development, and strategic planning. She has a strong retail background. She was vice president at Liz Claiborne from 1997 to 2008. So,
common technology has not met, tourism zone.
They had their annual meeting in Bailey's this month. Zeke rocked the boat.
I'm gonna ask a question to this body related to representation on there, and that is that there are members of that body, that have some opinion with regard to the idea that we've always, for 10 years, done the same thing. We've not really asked a question about, are we doing the right thing? So I've begun to ask the question, are we doing the right thing? Meaning, are we allocating money appropriately through that entity? In large part because our marketing is fantastic, and I don't think anybody raises a question about that. But then the product that we're delivering inside of our communities, particularly in the shoulder season, those entities don't necessarily get as much funding. That funding comes through DCVB, or DCVB by way of TZC. So I think it's certainly fair to have a conversation. I don't know if anybody around the table had a weigh-in on.
I think Jack Moneypenny should have a cap, and the rest should go to the communities.
That's kind of what I've been looking at, actually.
I mean, for the additional dollars, and this is not a slam against the Visitor Bureau at all. I think they're a good organization, doing a lot of good for the county. But I believe that at a certain point, throwing more money is not going to return more. And I think that amount of money in the individual communities could be so much better utilized and would enhance all of them better, in a nutshell.
The point that Zeke made at the last meeting was that the community coordinators are just turning over like crazy. I mean, how many of you said we had?
3 in Sister Bay and like 4 in every other community in my 4 years here. I mean, there's no continuity with those particular positions. As a consequence, the events don't really have any continuity. I mean, oldie but goodies like Fall Fest and Pumpkin Patch and Marina Fest, those have staying power, but the rest of them seem to come and go, the coordinators come and go.
And one of the
And
issues-
Harbor gets new money because they have to create new events, so they do it a couple
Right.
years, and then it goes away. So that's why that may be happening in Egg
Okay.
Harbor. That's all planned that way.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely gotta be a law of diminishing returns.
Yep.
Spending and spending and spending on advertising, eventually, as we all talk about too in our own businesses, and pretty soon, so you get all these people coming here, what if we as the community aren't servicing them, well, are they gonna come back? And, I mean, we all know there's bigger issues to fry, and maybe they can be some of the facilitator of some of this seasonal housing. Some of that money could be maybe allocated towards that. There's other things we gotta think about.
Jack talked at the annual meeting about the Door County brand. So they have the marketing piece down, but that piece that you're talking about recognizing that each of the visitor centers is merchandised in a different way, and the layout amongst our workforce is different. They go into your place and they use one point of sale system, they go into another place and use another point of sale system. Okay, so it's fair to have a conversation. Okay.
I think the other thing is
Rock the boat.
a lot of times it's thrown like this, these are the statutory requirements. We can't do this, and it'd be nice to have some legal opinion to push back with.
Vanda Castle is who's hired by the TZC, and Vanda Castle writes what Josh Van Lyshout asks him to write. If I called up Randy Nesbitt and said, Randy, here's my opinion on this piece of legislation, he'd be more than glad to write a letter back the other way. And I argue Josh's point. I don't think Josh is spot on with that.
Saying at some point it might be nice to have that letter so when you're, because everybody I talk to out there always says, oh, you've got these statutory requirements, you can't do this, you can't do that, and it's hard to argue against an attorney when everybody else is listening to that attorney.
That's a good point. I'll work on that.
Okay. Youth Center,
No meeting.
parking.
No meeting. Apparently, we're gonna be setting one up tonight.
Yes, ma'am.
Holiday lighting, no meeting.
We were gonna put those off by
Yes, ma'am, I'm still working on it.
That's all I got. We have a motion to adjourn would be in order.
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Mike?
Utilities.
Utilities got left off the list.
I'm not on the list, so I guess.
Holy, whoa, the most important department in the village.
And the representative, it's director
wait,
here.
Sat here all
We
night.
didn't tell you, you're going to Liberty Grove.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay, utilities.
Well, you guys have the director's report. Everything is pretty much self-explanatory, unless someone has questions. I did bring this letter from Pinker that I didn't get a chance to get in the electronic packet. We've been discussing, we're always under the assumption that we own the lift station over here at Pheasant Park. That's how we've treated it since about 2003 when it was built. Well, then, last year, when I took over, I was going through the light bills one day and went, well, if we own this lift station, how come we don't pay a light bill? Well, and I started looking into it, and for whatever reason, it was never turned over us. Every other lift station we have, the lift station itself has been turned over, the easement the lift station sits on, and the road, the easement to the lift station. This was never turned over. And we looked all over every easement we could find. We went with the engineers and couldn't find anything. Gave it to Randy Nesbitt, and then he found this information that no, it was never granted to the village. So we've been maintaining this on a weekly basis for the last 14 years and spent a lot of different money on it. We don't even own it.
So this looks like an oversight, and Mike and I
Yes.
talked about this prior to this letter being written. This looks like an oversight on somebody's part way back when. We need to get it cleaned up, and this is kind of the first step in that, and being able to have that conversation with Mr. Hawthorne, who we met this past weekend.
And they, at one point, they talked about Mr. Buddick, who kind of represents the condominium people over on that road. So they'd be willing to give it to us. They just, because he goes, well, maybe we should you should pay us for it. And then I said, well, maybe you should pay me like $10,000 for last year's work. Although maybe we should just give it to you. So.
Times 14.
I think Randy's gonna end up, and he's putting it all on them, to not, so we don't have to spend attorney's fees to get it turned out. It's the right thing we want.
That's the Pheasant Park lift station, is that what you call it?
Yeah, Randy didn't say it that way, but that is the Pheasant Park station. You guys already took care of the CMR, our main lift station upgrade. We got approval from the DNR. Public Service Commission never cared about this stuff before, now suddenly they do. And not only that, then they charge us fees to rebuild it.
That's how government works.
So, yeah, so that's what's happening there. The Consumer Confidence Report, Stacy got that all taken care of. It's all mailed out and copies are available. DNR is satisfied.
Okay.
Any
questions?
Mike, thanks for doing an awesome job.
Yes, exactly.
We'll make sure that you come back out of Liberty Grove, back to Sister Bay next month and have it on the list.
All right.
We were just trying it out, see how it worked out. Okay, I believe there was a motion on the floor to adjourn in a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Let me tell you my latest.